Ontario. Event spaces where proof of vaccination is required will also be allowed to go to full capacity. Toronto's Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Eileen de Villa, is still urging personal caution as the province eases restrictions.
Keeping distance, wearing our masks, and for sure, if you're not feeling well or you have symptoms that might be a COVID-19 illness, to get that checked out and not mix with others.
Now, as an added layer of caution, it is believed that Ontario's mask mandate will remain in place for indoor public places at least until early next year. New COVID cases in Ontario are trending lower. Vaccination rates are rising. Nearly 88% of eligible people in this province now have at least one dose of COVID-19 vaccine. At Queen's Park, Kevin Meisner, City News.
City News time 9:01, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
It was 14 degrees very early this morning. That's our high for the day. For the rest of the day, we'll sit at about 8 degrees, becoming partly cloudy. Gusty wind out of the northwest. It will become light and variable tonight. 1 for the low. For the weekend, quite a bit of cloud. Could see some showers Sunday. Highs near 11 degrees. For today, already reached the high, 14.
And right now in Ottawa, 4 degrees. It's 5 in Smiths Falls. OPP looking for help to find a missing 15-year-old girl from Alexandria. Tiffany Cowan was last seen around 3:30 yesterday afternoon at the Alexandria Island Park. Tiffany is 5'5", weighs 140 pounds, has black shoulder-length hair and blue eyes. When last seen, she was wearing a gray dress, black boots, and a black coat. We do have her picture up at ottawa.citynews.ca. If you have any information, you're asked to contact the OPP. Now, Russell OPP investigating reports of a naked man running through a park in Limoges. About 1:30 Wednesday afternoon, the naked man ran through the park on Limoges Road. At one point, he ran towards some people, but then ran off without further incident. OPP is asking for help identifying the man, believed to be in his 60s, about 6 feet tall and weighing 180 pounds. He was wearing a black toque, a blue surgical mask, and gray sweater that was wrapped around his waist, but his genitals exposed. He may have been wearing glasses as well. Anyone with information asked to contact the OPP. City News time 9:03. The Kemptville Hospital working to restore regular service, including its emergency room after a cybersecurity incident. Now, experts have been called in to help the hospital staff contain as well as evaluate the full scope of this situation. It has led to the closure of the emergency room, a decision the hospital says it did not take lightly. As to when the system will be back and allow it to fully reopen, that's too early to determine. The OPP Cyber Crime Unit has been notified. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Separating headlines
from hearsay.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Friday. Made it. What a week. Busy, busy, busy. Great show ahead. Some radio shows, they like to coast into the weekend, There's nothing but fun and games and jokes and laugh tracks. Not around here. No way. We never take a day off from covering the hard news of the day on the Rob Snow Show. Randall Denley is coming right up. Post media columnist, author, has a column in the Post today all about Doug Ford. Doug Ford's mixed week. I think you could call it a mixed week. For the Premier of Ontario, he made those controversial remarks about new Canadians collecting the dole, go somewhere else, then refused to apologize. But then his government announced that it's going to introduce some legislation and is getting high marks in most quarters for doing so. An attempt to remove barriers for new Canadians when it comes to the recognition of foreign credentials. That announcement came out yesterday from the Labour Minister. A long-standing problem that governments of all stripes have said they were going to do something about, but there hasn't been much progress. Will it be different this time? Well, we'll ask Randall Denley, and we'll get his thoughts as well on what we might learn today from the Ford government on the reopening roadmap. Here we go again, hitting the road again. Get out the map. I hope this is it, don't you? and that we never, ever, ever have to close things down in Ontario again. Premier has a news conference scheduled today for 2 o'clock when we expect, as we've been reporting all morning, he will announce the end of capacity limits for businesses that are still hamstrung by 50% capacity. And you know it, and I know it, and the government knows it. It's been facing the wrath of Main Street ever since the government decided that NHL games could have sold-out crowds, but offered nothing to restaurants and retailers. Won't come into effect right away, is what our reporters are being told by their sources in Toronto, but most likely on Monday. The National Post's Randall Denley coming right up on that, and we'll get political reaction to it when we're joined by our MPPs for the Queen's Park Week in Review. Also this morning, one of our favorite weekly contributors, Derick Fage, Daytime Ottawa, Rogers Television. Like I said, it was a big weekend news. I see the price of gas, David, another record today. The gas station around the corner is $1.47.9. So you call it $1.48 for a liter of gasoline. Meantime, you had that inflation report from Statistics Canada out Wednesday morning. 4.4% increase year over year for September. Prices up in every category measured by StatScan. The 8 major components of the CPI Consumer Price Index. We have energy inflation. We have food inflation. We have shelter inflation. So as long as you don't drive or eat or heat, there's no inflation. We had a food supply chain expert on yesterday, Sylvain Charlebois, professor at Dalhousie University in Halifax, and he told us he thinks it's only going to get worse when it comes to buying groceries. It's only going to get worse in the coming months. It's going to be a tough winter for a lot of people. And then there's a news report this morning about propane. The rising cost of propane. Propane is a vital heating fuel for so many communities in rural Ontario and Western Quebec. Prices for propane up 300%. 300%, it's insanity. So some budgets are going to be stretched to the limit, I fear, in the coming months. Mandatory vaccine story, that's alive and kicking. The numbers yesterday from the Ottawa Hospital. I mean, I have to keep in mind, I think the head count at the Ottawa Hospital is like something like 10,000, 12,000 employees, right? What is it, David?
It's over 12,000.
Over 12,000, right? So, perspective, but still more than 300 employees remain unvaccinated. Smaller numbers at some of the other hospitals, but there's not a hospital in Ontario that isn't either warning people that they'll be let go or simply letting people go because they aren't vaccinated. And the O'Toole Conservatives, they're taking a beating again because of their stance on mandatory vaccines. 2 opinion pieces in the Globe and Mail today about that, including today's editorial. And you have Carla Qualtrough, employment minister in the Trudeau government. She told one of the political talk shows yesterday, unvaccinated Canadian workers who are let go from their jobs wouldn't even be able to file an EI claim, which seems kind of harsh. So we're going to get into all of this and many more things as we make our way through the morning, find out what Derick thinks of them. Steve Warne will be back, talk about sports like the Senators play tomorrow and the Redblacks play tomorrow. Redblacks, 2-8, not looking good. Terrible. The Redblacks are bad, like, so bad. And the National Football League. Sunday action. Dan Kelly, head of the CFIB, Canadian Federation of Independent Business. CRB, the CERB, is ending this weekend. We learned that yesterday from Krista Freeland. And a whole bunch of other programs will expire this weekend. COVID-19 support programs for businesses. There will be other programs that will last until May. $7 billion worth of programs. Get into all of that and the Ontario reopening news. Dan Kelly, Canadian Federation of Independent Business. And the Friday free-for-all during the talkback hour, coming up between 10 and 11 o'clock. On Fridays, we don't do the deep thinking or the heavy lifting. We leave that up to you, okay? And just about anything goes during Fridays. You want to comment on something that's been in the news this week or something that you think should be in the news, give me a call, 750-1310, 750-1310. We will verbally duke it out. Okay, we do that every morning between 10 and 11 o'clock. Hour of phone calls, hour of opinions, hottest hour of talk radio in town. I hope you'll take part. And just a couple of personal notes. You may have noticed that Lowell is away today, Lowell Green. For those of you who follow Lowell online, you may know this already, but Lowell tripped and fell and broke his hip and needed surgery, which he has had at the Civic. I have not had an update from his wife in a couple of days. He's recovering, but it's been a rough week for the big guy. And let's just send him all our best wishes, shall we, to our friend, Lowell Green. And I was also saddened to learn, by way of Twitter this morning, about the passing of former Member of Parliament Barry Turner. I got to know Barry Turner a little bit when he would join me on the radio from time to time when we talk about federal politics. Barry was elected as a Member of Parliament in 1984. As a progressive conservative, part of the massive Mulrooney sweep of Canada in 1984. The riding at the time was called Ottawa Carleton. And Barry also had a long career in government relations, working, I remember, on behalf of Ducks Unlimited, was an avid outdoorsman. And a fine and decent man who will be missed. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
I always knew I was going to own my own business, and I've always wanted to have a store. And I sort of figured when the right concept came together at the right time, I would move forward with that plan. And so through doing some environmental initiatives in the restaurant group that I was with prior to opening this store, it just triggered my path towards being more environmentally conscientious and wanting to make more of a difference, and hopefully encouraging, inspiring other people to want to do the same, at which point the idea for All Eco was born. I have some really fun products. I have a really wide spectrum of products. So the things we look for in terms of qualifying products are sustainably made, upcycled, recycled, zero waste, all natural, no harmful chemicals to like the environment or to our bodies. We have like fun stuff, so like really clean burning candles, lots of really natural body care and skin care. I put a real emphasis on Canadian products. I really try to support up and comers, and I always source Canada first. The refill bar is really important to me. It's really huge. I think that's been exciting as well, because I thought it was going to be a real process in convincing people that this is a better way to go. And actually it was just like right away there was a built-in affinity towards doing refill, which has been great. We closed, I think, probably we were closed down by before the second week of March. Just didn't feel we could comfortably or confidently stay open, even though I do sell essential products, like in terms of the cleaning. But we just didn't feel we could make a safe space for ourselves or our customers at that time, and especially with the information we had at the time. So we did close our doors, at which point I did not have a website, because that was only, I hadn't even scheduled myself to have a website at that point. So that was sort of like full speed moving towards that and trying to drive the business, at the same time still get myself on the map because I was so new. So during that time, as we were building the website, we were still doing a lot of video shopping and private shopping, online shopping, like online phone, text. Any way I could do business, I was doing it. And And there was really a nice show of support for my business during that time, which was really, really encouraging. And now, we are fully set up online too.
Voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Again, the Premier's news conference, 2 o'clock this afternoon. Catch it on City News. Kind of a mixed week for Doug Ford. Randall Denley is back with us, Postmedia columnist and author. Good morning, Randall.
Good morning, Rob.
So on the one hand, he had what you describe as a brain cramp, but on the other, on the legislative side, making some good moves. What did you think of the week that he's had so far, Premier Ford?
Well, as you say, it was certainly mixed. Some people are saying, well, he said we don't want any lazy people sitting around in Ontario, which I'm sure most people would generally agree with. But there's just no point in pointing the finger at immigrants. We don't want any lazy immigrants coming in here. It's just such an old, unfounded stereotype, so easy to criticize and so pointless. And it was particularly, I think, maddening for his colleagues in that, this is the week that they're actually announcing something that's, I think, huge for immigrants. It makes perfect sense. It's the policy they came out with yesterday on actually letting people use the skills that got them into the country. So it's a big deal. No other province has done it. So why would you create a distraction in the same area in the same week? I mean, obviously he knew this was coming. So, his main point was that, look, we need lots more workers in Ontario. I favor immigration. I want more immigration. I mean, that's where he's generally coming from. Mm-hmm. But it's just such an old school conservative thing to say, we don't want anybody sitting around on the dole. Well,
right. The dole, right?
Yeah, the dole.
Like
right.
language,
We're
right?
back
The dole.
some other decade, I guess, talking about the dole.
Is he reading Dickens or something? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, it's part of the challenge of being, somebody in the public eye like Doug Ford is that if you do say something stupid, as many of us do from time to time, then of course it becomes a big deal, right? It's all about that, and
sure.
People in the media and talk radio spent days talking about that this week.
Yeah.
This absorbed a lot of time where they could have been talking about something else.
Third day in a row for me. So
yeah. And I can guarantee that more time will have been spent talking about what Doug Ford had to say about the dole than what Doug Ford's government is actually going to do to help immigrant workers, which is a much, much bigger story. But
so
I suppose dull in a way because headline government does something sensible.
Yeah. So what is he doing? What's the government proposing to do here?
Here's the problem, Rob, that we have with immigration in Canada. The federal government, of course, determines who gets in. We want people with, job-ready skills and filling gaps in our economy and all that. Big points for this. All good. So they come in thinking, hey, I'm an architect from Egypt or an electrician from India. I can come here and work. I say, well, no, wait a minute. Let's be reasonable. Do you have Canadian experience? Well, no, I just got here, but, I could get Canadian experience. Well, you have to be licensed, and you have to have Canadian experience to be licensed. So you have this circular catch-22 thing that you can't get experience because you don't have experience. But I hear they're hiring for Uber drivers.
Yeah.
I know you're a qualified tradesman, but they're hiring for Uber drivers, so maybe you should look at that because Canadian experience is not required. We waste a lot of people. I mean, according to the numbers the province presented yesterday, only about 25% of immigrants in the province are working in the area they're actually trained for. So there's a huge waste of people here who could do higher level jobs, but instead they're doing low level jobs because we've blocked them out. So the government's saying, well, we're not doing that anymore. In a lot of trades and professions, we're getting rid of the Canadian experience requirement.
Yeah.
So if you're a professional or a tradesman from another country, sure, you still have to take a competency exam, so we know you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But you can take that exam, become licensed, and start working. So it finally breaks this huge disconnect, and Ontario's the only province to have done this. So it's, I think, a competitive advantage for us. But breaks a big disconnect where you sell people on coming to Canada because they have skills, and then once they get here, they find out, oh, we can't use the skills, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or you have to go.
I mean, it's a real problem. The Uber driver with the engineering degree is a real problem and a real thing. I can remember as a much younger man, long before I was ever a radio, I was still a student. I was working in fast food with a guy from the Philippines who was an engineer. He was a trained engineer. And his brother was a trained engineer, and he every morning he got on the Continental mushroom bus. Do you remember to go pick mushrooms? You remember that bus that used to drive around? Pick mushrooms.
We talk about discrimination and racism, and we're horrified for it, but we just have this built-in thing. It's well, fine, you can come here, but don't think about taking our jobs. You're going to have to take the jobs we don't want. It's really ridiculous and unfair, and I think this is great legislation because it does something about it. And Ontario's desperate for workers. We're short 293,000 workers.
Yeah.
Now, what they're doing or announced this week won't produce more workers, but it will enable workers to get the jobs they're qualified for. So it helps on the higher end.
Yeah. And there's money to be made, right? There's money to be made. So, it doesn't address the skill shortage in healthcare, though.
No, that's the big
shortfall.
And they're a little oblique about why not, but the words strong professional associations and big unions would immediately come to my mind. It's stupid because there isn't really any kind of work in healthcare where we aren't short of people. And if somebody's, say, a doctor from India or France or Britain, they want to come here and be a doctor, I think, okay, well, these are advanced countries with recognized educational institutions. Probably that person's a good doctor, or at least a capable doctor, so why would we hold them back? But even Canadians who can't get into medical schools here because we don't have enough, a lot of them will go elsewhere to get trained, and the Caribbean is a popular location. So, a woman from Ottawa can go get trained in the Caribbean. She can come back, and then she's considered she's a foreign doctor now, foreign-trained doctor. So, we got to look at you differently, put you through hoops. If you're allowed to practice at all, we're going to send you to Northern Ontario because, foreign-trained doctor from Ottawa. We act like we're the only country in the world that can train people properly for healthcare. So everybody else is a little bit suspect. It's just a stupid, juvenile thing. And the Labour Minister, Monty McNaughton, says he's working with his health counterparts to see if he can get things opened up in health. But that's critical. You're just not going to get enough people unless you can bring them from outside the country. Because if all you can do is, Ontario, well, it's great, we hired some nurses from Alberta and some from Nova Scotia and some from BC. If you look at the problem nationally, say, well, that's good for you, but it just makes it worse everywhere else. So the real problem, and particularly for nurses, is that we just need more of them in Canada. Mm-hmm. So to me, if you're trained as a nurse, experienced as a nurse in any credible country in the world, you should be able to come here and be a nurse. I mean, sure, make them sit a test, but don't make it impossible for them.
Okay. What will you be listening for this afternoon when Premier Ford talks about reopening Ontario again?
What I'm looking for is if they offer what I would call a return to rationality and say, well, here are the steps. We're going to lay them out, and here are the thresholds that would trigger those next steps. Because we're a long ways from normal still. And we had that for a period of time, when ICU was at a certain level, cases were at a certain level. They had that color-coded system. You can move up and down. It was a bit complicated. Not too, but a bit. But still, it made sense. People could see, okay, things are going well.
Yeah.
So we'll have this level of freedoms.
Yeah.
Then they got scared and they got rid of all that. No, it won't be that anymore. Everything's going to be very restricted. It'll be restricted until the Chief Medical Officer of Health whispers in the Premier's ear and says, it's okay to do this. And then they'll do it. But we don't know, when that would be or what exactly would trigger it. I mean, the numbers in Ontario right now, no matter what you look at, are very favorable. It doesn't mean they can't get worse, but you remember, Rob, when the kids went back to school, they said, oh, yeah, the numbers are good, but once those kids get back at school, going through the roof. Didn't happen. Okay, yeah, but Thanksgiving, though. The Thanksgiving, that's going to set off a huge number of cases. Didn't happen. And the next thing we hear is, well, but the weather's getting colder, though. Everybody's going to be inside. Most people are probably inside most of the time anyway. I mean, if you work, most people work inside.
Yeah, and all of those previous plans, numbered plans and color-coded plans and everything else, whatever plan you looked at that was released by the Ford government, NHL hockey games, NBA basketball games, anything drawing a crowd in the thousands was always supposed to be the last thing on the list. Like that was going to be the last thing that would ever open.
Until it wasn't.
Right, until it wasn't. Until
I can see why the restaurant people are, and the gym people who will get a break today of some sort, but you can see why they're perturbed by this. Because
absolutely, yeah.
Somebody's going to say, yeah, I want 50 people in my restaurant. Whoa, too risky.
Too risky, yeah.
You can't do that.
9,000 people at the Sens game last night, though.
And then
that's
you say,
okay.
well, no, but you're only letting people in who are vaccinated. No, but it's still too risky. Yeah, so you can have, as you say, 9,000 people at a hockey game. Yeah, there's no problem. Yeah, of course the rink's bigger than the restaurant, but what is the risk, really? Because I think we get stuck too much on there's a risk. Okay, what is it, like 1 in a million, 1 in 10? It's just the fact that there's a risk associated with something is not enough to say, so we shouldn't do it. I mean, I think we're going to be wearing masks for a long, long time. We're going to have vaccine passports for a long, long time. Because at what point does the government ever say, all clear? Even if there were no cases for 6 weeks, they say, well, I can still come back. When will they ever say all clear? That's my question. When do you finally get back to something like life as normal pre-pandemic?
Okay. Thank you so much for this morning, Randall. We'll talk soon. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye. Yep. Randall Denley writes for the National Post. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
#1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, October 22nd. Good morning. I'm I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 4 degrees. Here's what's making news this hour. Dusting off the unused table and chairs at pubs and restaurants, they get ready to expand their capacity. Premier Doug Ford will be speaking at Queen's Park this afternoon at 2. The latest from Kevin Meisner coming up at the top of the hour. The search for a missing area teen continues this morning. We have a picture and full description of Tiffany Cowan at ottawa.citynews.ca. She's been missing since yesterday afternoon, last seen around Alexandria Island Park. Any information about where she is can be sent to the OPP. Starting on Monday at 10, you can book your appointment for a flu shot through Ottawa Public Health. This is for parents with children aged 6 months to 2 years and their families, along with those who experience barriers to getting the flu shot. The rollout for the general public will be in November. Shots available at your pharmacy or your doctor. The director of a movie being filmed in New Mexico has now been released from hospital after being injured on set, an incident that claimed the life of a filmmaker. Actor Alec Baldwin fired what should have been a blank during filming of Rust. The projectile killed Hala Hutchins. City News Time, 9:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Derick Fage is back with us, host of Daytime Ottawa on Rogers Television. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob. How are you today?
I'm good. I hope you had a good week.
I've had a great week.
That's great. Who you been chatting to on the TV?
Let's see. I had Sean McCann from Great Big Sea on the show.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he's got a new solo album. He lives in this area as well. He's also penned a book, co-penned a book with his wife Andrea, called One Good Reason, and just a really interesting topic about how he was really going down a terrible path with his addiction to alcohol. And Andrea really said, if you don't clean up your act, that's going to be it for us.
Right.
So yeah, really interesting conversation with him. I know we're talking inflation today, and we were talking about consumer debt on the show and some of the latest sort of survey results. And Ontarians, 60% of Ontarians likely to be taking on more debt before the end of the year, and something like 40% of Ontarians carrying a balance on their credit card and still spending on it. So, those things are always concerning. And then just some really interesting stories. A woman by the name of Melissa Rainville. She owns a place in Spencerville called Trinkets Boutique, and just a really difficult time for her during the pandemic. She lost her mother. They lost their business due to a fire. They had to relocate. So, just someone who's kept their sense of humor all along. And lastly, another one that stood out to me was the rig boxing in Hintonburg. Many people probably know Leone's Service Center. And Nicolina's father had owned that business for so many years. She lost her father, unfortunately, but he wanted the business to stick around to celebrate for 40 years. So her mom's taken over the business, and the garage is still there. And she's opened up a boxing club in behind the garage, and it's
cool.
It's a really neat looking space, and she's got a great personality and just a great atmosphere there. So yeah, there's some feel good stories too, which was always nice to see.
Great stuff. I was just scrolling through my Twitter feed. I try to limit that, but I was scrolling through my Twitter feed during the news break. It was 7 years ago today was the shooting at the War Memorial and then on Parliament Hill.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And the murder of Nathan Cirillo. Gosh, I remember that day like it was yesterday. I was both working and living in the Byward Market, and I was working in the afternoons then, and I remember when that happened. I was on the phone with a friend of mine who was working on Parliament Hill and ended up being like locked down in a room on the hill all day. And I remember walking up Dalhousie, and like nobody was out on the streets, and it was just strange.
Oh, yeah,
and then I ended up being on the radio for, I don't know, with Rick Gibbons for like 12 hours. Rick Gibbons and Mark Sutcliffe for like 12 hours that day.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. I mean, it's hard to believe it was 7 years ago now, because you're right. I remember it so clearly, and just remember all the rumors that were flying that there could be a second shooter and the complete lockdown downtown, and it was just such a scary moment. And then, what was happening in Center Block there on Parliament Hill, it was like a scene out of a movie. And it was just, and then, the more we got to know about Nathan and his story and who he was and so forth, I think it hit home to so many Canadians.
Yeah. And the damage that one person can do, right? In the end, it was one person with an old rifle and a Toyota.
Yeah, exactly.
Unleashed that just a day of madness in the capital. It was crazy. And, Kevin Vickers and the sergeant at arms.
That story, the Vickers story was
and I guess
incredible.
the bullet holes are still there. So,
yeah, that's right.
Just 7 years ago. That was 7 years ago today. My goodness gracious. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But inflation, I think that was a big story this week. I just mentioned to David, gas is at another record here in Ottawa this morning. I mean, this is biting. It's like $1.48 a liter, right? It's higher elsewhere. I took a call from a truck driver and going through the GTA, $1.50 all over the place across Toronto. The inflation reading was out on Wednesday. It was the strongest reading in almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And I just wonder how this is changing people's shopping habits. All of a sudden I'm looking at flyers. I was never this kind of, I'm not like,
you're 50 now.
I'm not, I guess so. And now I'm driving, oh my gosh, I can save 3 cents a liter on gas. I gotta, stop and fill the tank.
On the emergency brake and get in there quick.
The winter of discontent. This could be the winter of discontent for a lot of people, Derick.
Yeah, for sure. And, to keep up with sort of the light side of things, you mentioned flyers. You can even ask David when I was there filling in for you. I guess I can't remember what day of the week, like Thursdays is flyer day. And, I don't get the newspaper at home. I subscribe online now, but I saw all the flyers and I scooped them up and I said to David, oh my God, I can't wait to get home. My wife and I are going to sit down and go through the flyers. I love flyers.
Yeah, that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
I mean, we do. We're
Andrew Boyle, our news anchor. Andrew Boyle is the flyer guy. He usually snatches the flyers. So yeah, but that's.
I know it might even be worth me coming for a visit just to say hi to you guys and grab some flyers once a week. We don't get them anymore. I don't know what happened. We don't get the delivery at home anymore.
But it's funny because Andrew was saying just the other day. That so many grocery stores, they're advertising the prices, not the prices are on sale. Just the prices, not that anything's on sale anymore. So
the best flyer is always Canadian Tire, let's be honest, because everything's 70% off. The same items have been 70% off for the last 5 years. I don't understand it. A ratchet set, the same ratchet set, 70% off for 5 years. But you mentioned gas prices. I'm not necessarily driving around looking for the best one and wasting gas, but certainly if I go buy one and it's, in that $1.48 range, I'm letting that gas tank get as low as possible, as I drive around to see if anything's, come down by a cent or two. The prices are ridiculous. And, I know that there's so much pressure always. I was on Twitter and just seeing some people talking about, how we've got to get ourselves out of this and climate change and so forth. And what are we going to do?
Right.
And I know Professor Ian Lee has talked to you about it. There's no infrastructure.
No.
They need to be building it now. There has to be multiple charging stations at every gas station all over North America. There has to be multiple ones. They have to be fast charging because people aren't going to wait for 15 minutes. Right. For their vehicle to get charged. It's just not that, we don't live that kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
So until all of that infrastructure is in place, this is a pipe dream. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's strange because the retailing side of, say, the charging infrastructure, why there isn't a chain of say what I would say the equivalent of a gas station chain for electric cars all across the country is beyond me.
Yeah.
Every automaker is selling electric cars now or hybrid model cars now. Every single one of them has at least one model for sale.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Where is that, startup business?
Like, where's the electric equivalent of Esso or Petro-Canada or something?
And until that happens, it's not going to. And you know what? On the other side, too, Rob, is the affordability of electric vehicles.
Well, yeah.
We have to wait for them to come down. The average person still can't afford an electric vehicle. And twofold, they have to get, obviously the proper charging station put into their house. I know it's not crazy expensive, but it's still an investment.
It's a barrier, though. It's a barrier for some.
For sure. And then people worrying about mileage, right?
Range, the range.
I mean, look at the travel you have. Would you not have some anxiety going back and forth to work?
A little bit. Yeah, for sure. So, it's going to be a very interesting winter when it comes to where this inflation rate goes and what some of the ramifications are going to be. It's been 40 years since really inflation has been top of mind for a lot of people. I mean, my dad looks back at it, and it's not with fond memories. The days of high inflation and high mortgage rates and everything else.
The interest rates on mortgages, right? You're talking about the 80s.
Yeah.
They were insane. You're talking about 23%.
Yep. And tough on politicians, too. Tough for government. When this happens. So, speaking of politicians, the O'Toole Conservatives, I understand. I guess they have a minority constituency in their caucus and among the base, air quotes, the base, who are opposed to mandatory vaccination. I get it. I've taken those calls on the radio. I completely understand it. But they're looking like fools with each passing day on this. What do you think?
I mean, first of all, if you're in a possibility here where we may be having another election in less than 2 years, right? You know that over 80% of Canadians across the country are in favor of full vaccination, right? Mm-hmm. For people to go to a restaurant, to go to a sporting event, to go to the theater and so forth. How this has not sunk in to the Conservatives yet is beyond imagination. I don't understand it whatsoever. You're holding out for the furthest of your base. We saw with O'Toole that I think he was sort of moving towards that center, but as soon as he started moving towards it, a couple of people cried out and said, "What are you doing? You're moving too close to the center. Oh my God," which I think was the right thing to do for them if they had any chance of winning an election, minority or majority. And now, they're kind of, we're creeping back over to further right because, we don't want to lose those few votes. And I don't think those votes are a big deal. They need to get the votes from the Liberals. They don't need to get the votes from the PPC. I think that's the mistake they're making.
Now, what about the broader workforce here? Carla Qualtrough was on one of the political talk shows yesterday. She's the federal employment minister, and she says people who lose their jobs because they refuse to be vaccinated, like take a nurse, for example, who refuses to be vaccinated, gets fired from a hospital.
Right.
Can't claim EI. Wouldn't be able to claim EI. Seems kind of harsh to me. What do you...
Yeah, it does.
I don't know. I think that would be tested in court, Derick. I think.
Yes, I don't disagree with you there. Will it provide maybe an incentive for people to get vaccinated? Perhaps, but I think they're playing a game here that they probably won't win, because I agree with you. You're gonna have lawsuits like crazy. This is a difficult one to deny somebody of EI because they have not been vaccinated. I just don't see how that's going to work for them. I really don't. And I think it was a mistake to speak on it yet. I'm not sure if the federal employment minister did enough homework on this. Was it, one of those situations where it sort of was caught off guard and decided on an opinion right there on the spot?
Right.
Or have they done their homework on it and they realize that they may be confronted, in the courts with it, but they're confident? I'm not so sure on that, Rob. I think they're going down a path here that they may not want to be going down. But, when it's other people's money that they're going to spend in court, maybe they don't care.
Sure. I don't talk a lot about entertainment news on this show, but there's some interesting Hollywood headlines, that's for sure. Dune is out today, I believe, the new Dune movie.
Yeah.
Canadian director Villeneuve directed this. Rave reviews. Epic.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I want to see it. What about you?
I think it's one of those big screen movies. I've heard it's a little bit slow going in parts, but I think it's one of those movies from what I've seen described as just the worlds that Villeneuve has created. It's just absolutely spectacular. I mean, for me, if I'm going to go to the theater and spend the money going to a theater, it's got to be something pretty incredible when it comes to cinematography and, the audio and score and so forth. And I think this has all of those attributes. I'm looking forward to going to see the new Bond movie as well, because an action movie like that, is great on the big screen. If it's more of a storyline rather than, an action flick or something that's, grandiose on screen like Dune looks to be, I tend to wait and wait for it to come on a streaming service. But this one, I think I'd go to the theater to see this one.
Boy, what a weird story about Alec Baldwin this morning. It's just terrible.
I don't understand this. A prop gun. Now, and it's killed one and injured another. So was there 2 shots fired, or this projectile hit one person and it hit 2 people?
To me, it sounds like it may have been shrapnel or something. I just don't know what happened, but it's supposed to be a prop. I mean, it's supposed to be a prop. It's supposed to be a prop, right? So
that's what I don't understand.
Yeah. And apparently, just from what I've read, I only know what I've read so far, and it's early days, but the guild or whatever is supposed to have a firearms expert on every movie set who is supposed to test all of these things to make sure it's all safe, right? So
yeah, exactly. I don't I don't understand how situations like this can happen. If it's a prop gun, then it's a prop gun. I mean, there should be absolutely no way there's the possibility. And from I've seen behind the scenes with movies when they're using guns and so forth, they'll often add in the sound effect later. So why even bother having it? In a situation, maybe Alec needed to get in character and he has to hear the shot, to be able to react to it. I don't know, but I know that you can put the sound effect in at a later time. So I don't know why you'd even put yourself in this position.
Good. Well, have a good weekend, Derick. We always love having you on the show.
Love being here.
Yeah,
Thanks
and
so
we'll
much,
talk to you
Rob.
next week. Have a great week next week on Daytime Ottawa.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye. From Daytime Ottawa, the host at Rogers Television, Derick Fage. When we come back, Dan Kelly from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business on what you need to know about the end of COVID-19 relief programs and the start of something new. This is City News.
Opening a business especially in a pandemic, in that kind of situation, is very challenging. First, people don't know me. People don't know my product. To build a new clientele, to build a trust for them, to show them that I care about it. I do love my food. That was the biggest challenge. And of course, in all lockdown, where I had to face it regards my employee, girls, ladies, what they work for me, I didn't want to tell them, sorry, I'm closed, I'm not having a job for you. No, they have families, they have kids to feed. So this is very important because we are family orientated. And we decided to open. We, of course, essential business. So been very tough, very, very tough, as we didn't see people on the road. Market was completely quiet, but we knew it that we have to wait, and we knew it that we're gonna be fine. In this town, we built online shop, Vedel Online, and we did Uber Eats, which one is picking up and is very, very popular. We have a really good feedback. So this is the song from my heart. And and we try to expand. I'm thinking about opening another location. So I want to make Vedel famous. I want to make the Vedel place to be for all the families with kids. Try the traditional food, what the grandparents cooked in the countries when they're from, or even Canadian people, they're more than welcome to come and try our famous pierogis. I try to be passionate about my food, organic food, food made with love, with all homemade, organic. So you can find food from all over the Europe: Polish, German, Ukrainian, Romanian, French, Armenian. So all kind of different types of food. Homemade lunches. We focus on the homemade lunches, grandma style. I keep always saying, like in my Genia babcia house, how she cooked. I wanted this love and this food over here because I believe that would bring all people around me. And all the organic cold cuts, lovely selection of sausages, cheeses, European cheeses, great selections of mustards, French cookies. All what you need from Europe you can find here at the Vedel Touch of Europe. If you think good way, that's it. You have to. I had the option to cry in the corner and say, "Oh, pandemic is coming." No, you need to stand up and fight for it and have your eyes open, think outside of the box, and do it.
Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Some COVID-19 relief programs for businesses will expire this weekend. Some will be extended and have brand new names. Dan Kelly is back from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, very nice to hear from you. What do you think of generally speaking, what Chrystia Freeland announced yesterday for business relief?
Well, look, we certainly are relieved that the minister didn't eliminate the subsidy programs and has talked about a new pathway for them. But gosh, the bar is set super, super high. Right now, a restaurant under the new program starting, I guess, next week.
Is this the hardest hit business recovery program, Dan?
Well, there's two. One, but let's take the more generous one for a second.
Yep.
There's a special program for restaurants and hotels and tourism related businesses that was set up. That has the most generous subsidies. But to access it, you have to have a 40% loss in revenue or more on an ongoing basis. So if you're a small restaurant has seen revenues drop by 1/3, you will get zero.
Wow.
Support from Ottawa. That means that you're likely losing money every single day that you are open.
Yeah.
You're facing capacity restrictions like we hope will be lifted today, but still you're going to be facing passport related rules, meaning you're not able to serve all of your previous customers, and you're going to get not a nickel of help from Ottawa to over the next number of months. We're looking pretty lean.
Sorry, Dan, and that number 40% goes back to when? Like what's the...
Well, there's two tiers. One, you have to have a 40% loss over 12 months.
Over
and the
12
second
months.
test is you have to have a 40% loss that month that you're applying for.
Wow.
And so many restaurants are starting to see some customers come back, which is a good thing towards their recovery.
Right.
But they're not at 100%. And if they're down 1/3 in revenue, good Lord, they're not going to be able to make it.
Yeah.
But the situation gets worse for the bowling alley or the gym. Those businesses, you have to have a 50% loss. And get this, if you have a 50% loss in your revenue, the subsidy from Ottawa will be 10% of wages and rent. 10%.
10%.
So these businesses that are really struggling to get their customers back, even if they're not facing restrictions, customers are not coming back in droves just yet because public health officials are urging them not to. And yet Ottawa is really rapidly clawing back the supports. And this is what worries me, is that many businesses that are hanging on by their fingernails, that have been locked down for hundreds and hundreds of days, mountains of debt that they're facing, are now losing the rent and wage support that they've really been counting on to try to get them through till the period when all COVID restrictions are lifted. We're just not there.
What do you want to hear from the Premier this afternoon?
Well, one thing we want to rip away the incredibly unfair situation that he has created yet again by allowing big firms to do things that small firms are not able to do. I mean, the rules, as I'm sure you've discussed many times.
Many times, yeah.
That allow a hockey arena to have, 10, 20,000 people, but yet the small restaurant has to be capped effectively with half of their previous capacity. The bowling alley only able to keep every second lane open. These are the rules we think need to be ripped away and ripped away fast. There are indications, media is reporting that could happen as soon as next week, and that would be really, really helpful. It would be one of the few measures of true support that many in the hospitality and arts and entertainment businesses will have had in many months.
When you look back at the totality of this, COVID-19 and the impact on your member businesses or the kinds of businesses that would be members of the CFIB, the small independent shops, can you quantify for our listeners the wreckage, the tally of the wreckage, and just how bad it has been, Dan?
We can't do a full tally yet, but let me give you the national numbers as to where we're at right now. Only 75% of businesses across Canada are fully open.
Okay.
Only 45% of businesses have been able to bring back all of their staff. And get this, only 40% of businesses right across Canada, and that's even lower at 37% in Ontario, are at regular levels of income. So that means more than 60% of Ontario businesses are underwater, many of them losing money every single day they are open. And the question that's on the minds of business owners, especially as business support programs are drying up or less generous, is how many more days do they have before they have to close their operations for good? We at CFIB are forecasting that there'll be 180,000 permanent business closures across Canada. That's 1 in 6 small firms gone forever as a result of the damage that they've sustained over the last 19 months.
Okay. What is your opinion on what Carla Qualtrough said yesterday about people who refused to be vaccinated couldn't get EI? Any thoughts on that? Or?
I really worry about this. I understand why governments want to put in place things like passports for either, and federal government is looking at mandating, although I think fairly softly, mandating people to be vaccinated. I get the objective there. As a fully vaccinated person, I think it is a good idea, and I hope that more people do. But I worry about the long-term consequences of forcing the issue and punishing people, kind of pushing them off onto this little island.
Yeah.
We've gone beyond nudging people to get vaccinated or trying to convince them of its benefits. And now we're in the active mode of punishing people, taking away things as a result of
being ostracized. Being ostracized, right? Being ostracized.
Look, I get we're in a public health emergency still, but I think there are going to be some long-term negative consequences of treating people with disdain for making this choice. And that's kind of the tone that seems to be politically popular right now, to try to push away people who are unvaccinated and treat them like some form of second-class citizen. I think that's a step too far, and I think we're going to regret it.
Okay. Dan Kelly, always great to hear from you, sir. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
Have a great day. Bye-bye. Dan Kelly from the CFIB. Talk Back Hour next Friday. Free for all, 750-1310. Have a line for you. Rob Snow Show, City News.
FM in Smith Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, October 22nd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. It's been anticipated for some time, even more so in the last couple of weeks. The lifting of capacity limits at places like bars and restaurants. Apparently that won't happen this weekend, but will on Monday. Here's the latest from Queen's Park and City News reporter Kevin Meisner.
We have confirmation Premier Doug Ford and Chief Medical Officer of Health for Ontario, Dr. Kieran Moore, will be speaking here at Queen's Park at 2 this afternoon. They will detail the plan to allow Ontario to safely reopen and manage COVID-19 for the long term. We do know capacity limits are finally going to be lifted as of Monday for restaurants, pubs, and gyms in Ontario. Event spaces where proof of vaccination is required will also be allowed to go to full capacity. Now, as an added layer of caution, it is believed that Ontario's mask mandate will remain in place for indoor public places at least until early next year. New COVID cases in Ontario are trending lower. Vaccination rates are rising. Nearly 88% of eligible people in this province now have at least one dose of COVID-19 vaccine. At Queen's Park, Kevin Meisner, City News.
City News time at 10:02. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
It was 14 degrees very early this morning. That's our high for the day. For the rest of the day, we'll sit at about 8 degrees, becoming partly cloudy. Gusty wind out of the northwest. It will become light and variable tonight. 1 for the low. For the weekend, quite a bit of cloud. Could see some showers Sunday. Highs near 11 degrees. For today, already reached the high, 14.
And right now in Ottawa and in Smith Falls, it's 4 degrees. Monday morning at 10, flu shot bookings for some will open at Ottawa Public Health. Community vaccine clinics will be held for parents with children aged 6 months to 2 years. Also, people who experience barriers to getting the shot, for example, no Ontario health card. A week after that, vaccines will be available for anyone from their doctor or a pharmacy. Ottawa Public Health says it is doing a targeted approach to flu vaccines because of the expected approval of the COVID vaccine for children between the age of 5 and 11 and the booster shot for some people. Appointments for the flu shot can be booked Monday at Ottawa Public Health website. Pfizer has released details of its study looking into the effectiveness of the COVID-19 vaccine in children aged 5 to 11. U.S. and Canadian regulators are weighing whether to approve this or not. The study found pediatric doses, about a third of what was given to adults, appears safe and nearly 91% effective at preventing symptomatic infections in children. The Prime Minister said yesterday Pfizer is ready to ship millions of doses of vaccine to Canada as soon as Health Canada gives the stamp of approval. City News time 10:04. One crew member dead, another injured, but now released from hospital this morning after shooting on the set of a movie in New Mexico. The alleged shooter is actor Alec Baldwin.
What was loaded in the prop gun is a big question today. The sheriff in Santa Fe County, New Mexico, is confirming the gun was fired by Alec Baldwin. The call came in of a shooting on the set of the Western movie Rust. The movie's director of photography is dead. The director of the movie is injured and getting treatment. Pictures of Baldwin reportedly after the shooting show him appearing to be distraught. Witnesses are being interviewed. The sheriff says the investigation is open and active. Alex Stone, ABC News.
And I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Friday free-for-all. Our favorite hour of the week around here. We don't come up with the topics. We leave that up to you. And we roll with it. Busy week. Busy week. There's going to be more news today about the end of capacity limits for some hard-hit businesses, restaurants, fitness centers. We're expecting something along those lines from the Ford government, 2 o'clock this afternoon, as you just heard in our newscast. Not to take effect right away, probably Monday. But based on the conversations that we had on that topic earlier in the week, I'm betting that most of you would view that as a step in the right direction. As I said, Fonzie has jumped the shark, okay, when it comes to capacity limits in Ontario and The government is telling billion-dollar sports franchises that they can have sold-out hockey games. Not that there have been many sellouts. They had like 9,000 at the Sens game last night, but nevertheless, not the point. The Sens are allowed to have a sold-out hockey game, which is the point. Meantime, the government has still been asking a lot of Main Street to try and get by, with 50% capacity. So we're going to be all over that story again today. Every Friday we do the Queen's Park Weekend Review with our MPPs. We'll get political reaction to that news. That's just in about an hour and a half from now here on the Rob Snow Show on City News. Michelle, Ottawa South, good morning. You're on City News.
Good morning, Rob.
Morning.
I was listening to Mr. Denley this morning, and it made me remember something I read years ago about Cuba. Cuba offers free medical and dental school for any American citizen. Oh. And I'm not sure how many participated over the years, but it was also a war tactic to embarrass and humiliate their enemy, the U.S. So recognizing credentials can be obviously very important to get it right. But I can tell you once my father went to Cuba back in the early 90s, and on the flight he suffered an abscess, and getting off the plane he had to go right, couldn't check into the resort. The pain was so bad they went right to a dentist. And my father had all his working life excellent dental coverage, plus I had a grandfather who was a dentist. He came home ranting and raving about how fantastic the care was. They'd fixed a bridge he had in his mouth that nobody could fix here. He just was so impressed at the service and care and the talent that the dentist had. He couldn't get over it. Anyway, so I just thought I'd tell you that because it would be interesting to see how many people actually were trained in Cuba and where they went on to be recognized after. So,
interesting. Okay.
Also, so this week, Doug has been taking a lot of negative reviews.
Sure.
And
deservedly so, don't you think? Deservedly so?
Well, give me a second to explain here. Because I can't help but wonder when, as a conservative, we're going to recognize the double standard here. Any chance the left has to throw accusations of conservatives being racist haters, don't give them the ammunition. You had the blue sky BS lady on, and when I say BS, I mean big smiles, because every time I hear her, she is so tenacious in her defense of her team that I end up with a big smile. And then yesterday you had Lindsay Maskell, and she floated a new phrase a few times, maybe 2 or 3 times. She said microaggressive comments, microaggression.
Yeah, that's not necessarily a new term. That's been around for a while.
But no, but now it's I've heard it more than once in describing the incident this past week here.
Yeah,
so, and I see the left, they play with the language all the time.
Well, whatever. I mean,
well, hold on. Let me, because I'm trying to be fair here.
Okay,
so
all right.
When the left calls the border crossers irregular, I mean, irregular is not a good term when you're describing anything.
Yes.
Right? But that goes without criticism. And to me, what I heard Doug say was, we need people. We need a lot of people. We need people with a good work ethic. And I see that as a voter, as somebody who's trying to protect our system, which can't take any more. So I appreciate that he's saying, come, but come, understand, you got to work. To me, when somebody's telling somebody to come, you're being invited into the country. Come, but come only if you want to work and stuff. So, maybe.
Yeah, but okay, maybe that's what you heard, but that's not what he said. That's not what he said. He said, but if you want to collect the dole, go somewhere else, is what he said.
Yeah, but so
which
what?
is like,
if he was
so what?
50,
so what? So when he's talking about new Canadians, he's talking about new Canadians. Come on, Michelle, come on.
Rob, those 50 men that were all white in a room, and he said, if you guys want to collect the dole, would anybody be screaming? I just wish we would judge people on their character.
Look, it's just so needlessly toxic and divisive. And stupid. It's a stupid thing to say.
In this day and age, you're not getting away with it. So I go back to the beginning where I say, why do we give them the ammunition?
To your point, why? Yeah, why is he giving them the ammunition?
I don't have an answer for that, but I do feel that it's very unfair, and without anybody saying it, it's a way of saying racist. And I'm so tired of everybody in this country that's white being described as haters. It's not true.
All right.
Okay. And one last thing.
Sorry. I hung up on you by mistake. It was a mistake. Because I know I'm going to get an email. Why'd you hang up on me? Steve in Ottawa. Steve, go ahead, Steve.
Hey, Rob. Happy Friday.
Thank you, Steve. Happy Friday to you, too.
So I want to talk about these electrical charging stations.
Yeah.
I don't think in the future there's going to be gas stations. Like, you're not going to pull up somewhere to get electricity because they already have electricity everywhere.
Right.
I think it's going to be up to the big box stores to put electricity in all the parking lots and every stop.
Right. Right.
It'll be like an old school drive-in. You know where the drive-in, you used to put the thing on your car so you get the sound?
Oh, okay. Right. Okay.
So you'll pull up at the Walmart.
Right.
You'll hook up your car, go in, come out, tap, unhook, and drive away.
Right.
So,
okay.
You know what I mean? If everywhere you go, there's a charging station, it would make things make a lot more sense. You know what I mean? And it'd be another revenue stream for all the big box stores, you know, your Walmarts and even government office buildings.
Yeah. And this is another thing, you know, because right now a lot of the charging stations that are in Ottawa are free. Right? Should they be free? Because I've always thought, well, why like gasoline's not free. Why are my tax dollars going to subsidize some rich guy who can afford a Tesla so he can get free electricity, free fuel?
Why don't they charge? You know, it'd be less than gas, but I mean, why don't they? Okay,
less than gas, whatever. Shouldn't there be? There should be a charge for the electricity.
Yeah, exactly. I think I think it makes sense to me. If you're going to sit there and charge your car, you're going to go shopping. Your car gets charged. You pay $10 or.
Well, whatever it costs, probably wouldn't be that much, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, you know, they want to make money. Whatever. It is what it is. You kind of have the luck.
I wonder if there's any money in that. I wonder if there's any money in that, Steve. Like, say, you know, we had Steve and Rob's, charging cafe or something. I wonder if we could make any money off of it.
Well, I was thinking about it, putting them down Highway 7, you know what I mean? If you can some of the local places that have a parking lot and be like, hey, I want to put these charging stations in, but I don't know. I don't know the first thing about installing charging stations or, you know, I'm a truck driver. I don't know a lot about the whole industry.
Right. Okay.
I don't know the backing and everything. But
so you're up and down Highway 7 all the time, are you?
Well, not all. I mean, I have a trailer out that way, so not. I mean, I'm all over.
I want to know, Steve, in the last week, what's the highest gas price you've seen?
Well, probably today, $1.49.
$1.49. Okay. All right. Thanks, Steve. Have a good weekend. Got to run. Okay, yeah, one more before we break here. Roger in Drummond. Roger, you're on City News. Roger.
Good morning, Rob. I want to talk about a couple of things. The cost of living is certainly on everybody's mind. Out shopping yesterday, and every place I went to, that's all everybody was talking about.
Oh, really? Okay.
You were talking the other day about not buying steaks. Well, I just happened to go in Independent yesterday in Carleton Place, and they had steak for sirloin steak for $5 a pound. So, like yourself, we have to buy with our flyers, you know.
Yeah.
And then I look at the gas here. It's around $1.45 average in the Carleton Place area, and same with the Perth area, you know.
Okay.
Now you were talking about propane there going up 300%.
There's a report in the National Post today that says propane is going up 300% or has gone up 300%.
Well, like we pay about $250 a month here for a 10-month cycle. Okay.
Okay.
And if it's going up 300%, I'm just going to be afraid to get our next bill, you know. But I want to talk about Mr. Trudeau, too, just a couple of comments, you know. When he was in BC the other day for his apology, and then he basically lied to the First Nations about all the documents that he said that they already got, which wasn't true, you know. And then the fact is that, you know, the amount of gun violence, and there was 2 people killed in Kingston the other day. I guess one or two of them are from Ottawa, but I mean, and then the next day it was another shooting in Ottawa, and they're shooting all over the country. And they're not using those automatic weapons that Trudeau banned. They're using handguns, Rob.
Smuggled, probably, or stolen.
I mean, it just seems like they're becoming like the Wild West here in Canada, and it doesn't seem to be any deterrent for this kind of violence, you know. And when is Canadians going to say they had enough of it between that and how much it's costing us to just get by these days?
And the Canadian Taxpayers Federation is saying that this gun buyback program that they have is 34% over budget already, and they haven't bought a single gun yet.
And how much money did they spend so far, Rob, on that?
I don't have that figure with me, but
probably in the billions.
But you know, it's turning into another boondoggle. I mean, the original gun registry, they said it was going to cost $100 million, and it cost $1 billion, right? So.
Yeah, Rob, and at the same time, you know, like you're saying, all this money that's being spent, and yet there is no limit on the amount of violence that continues to happen. You know, like, so what is it all about?
Good point, Roger. Thank you. Got to run. Yeah, Talkback Hour, Friday Free for All. Rob Snow Show on City News.
an old-fashioned traditional grocery store. You're going to find a butcher, okay? You want a steak cut a certain way, you're going to get it. You know, there's flour piled in the warehouse. There's mixers on the floor. There's flour on the floor. The bakery is rented out to Frank Nicolo. It's him and his son come in at night. They mix the dough, they roll the dough, and they bake the dough. It's not the traditional frozen and thaw and put it in the bin, okay? It's made from scratch 7 days a week. It's probably the only bakery left in Ottawa that does that. You know, then customer service. You know, we're big on that. The cashiers, the deli. You're not, if you ask for something, they're not going to point. It's an aisle number 7. They're going to bring you there. Okay. If you have too much groceries out, we'll take it out to your car. You know what I mean? There's nothing we don't do for our customers, and we evolved around our customers. They would come in and say, you know, can you try getting me this? You know, can you get me this? So that's how we built the lineup we have now. Okay. So we have a lot of unique items that someone that came over to, you know, live in Canada hasn't seen this particular product, but we sourced it and we have it for them that, you know, like something they used to have as a kid. We have a lot of those unique items, a lot, you know, from like all over the world. And we source it through, you know, distributors in Montreal and Toronto that bring in the product in bulk, and we piggyback off of them. Probably the largest European deli in Ottawa. We sell lots because people buy lots. It's nothing really complicated about that. You know, we turn over a lot of product. You know, we package it properly. We buy, and we're always consistent. You know, you're always going to buy, you know, Cuddy turkey breast. You know, San Daniel mortadella. You're always going to get the same brands. We don't flip back and forth to save 20 cents. It's always the same brands the last 29 years. Best sandwiches in town. It's simple. It starts off with fresh bread every day baked in the store. Anything that's left over goes to breadcrumbs. So you're getting a fresh bun every day that was baked probably 4 hours before you get here. Okay? Not only baked, made. Like, you know, mix the flour, roll the dough, proof the bread, and bake the bread. Okay? Then all the ingredients come right off the shelves. You know, your lettuce, your tomatoes, all your condiments, and they're cut up fresh in the deli. Not like the big, you know, corporate restaurant chains that your lettuce comes in shredded in a bag, you open it up and you throw it in the bin. You know, takes, you know, 2 or 3 days to get here from California. How long is it in the bag? The big difference is like making a sandwich at home, and you don't have to do the work. It's really what the trick is, and using the freshest ingredients possible.
Back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Yeah, just following up on Roger's call here. This is the Canadian Taxpayers Federation released this yesterday, on the federal government's, the Trudeau government's, what it calls gun buyback scheme. Okay, gun buyback scheme, I'm quoting here. Last December, the Department of Public Safety handed a contract to IBM to develop the firearms buyback framework at a total estimated cost of $1.1 million. By May, the total estimated cost had jumped to over $1.5 million after several contract amendments. The department said the original contract given to IBM included optional services which could increase the value of the contract up to $395,000. Public Safety decided to ask for those services. To date, the Firearms Buyback Secretariat has spent close to $2.2 million, half going to bureaucratic salaries, the other half going towards operational spending. The total cost of reimbursing gun owners could cost $756 million. Government is planning to spend $4 million annually on the Firearms Buyback Secretariat. The government has yet to buy back any guns. Okay, all right. Lots of people being paid. Not buying too many guns, though. Doesn't sound familiar at all with this crew. Dave in Ottawa West. Good morning, Dave.
Hi, Rob.
Hi there.
Hi, Rob. I actually called to say goodbye.
What's the matter?
Well, what's the matter is
I watched CNN last night. I watched Biden mumble and bumble his way through whatever he was trying to say.
Right.
And the media heaped praise on him afterwards.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And the USA is going down the drain. And really and truly.
Yeah.
And this morning, from 6 o'clock to around 7 o'clock, I'm lying in bed, and I'm going over all the things that he has done wrong up to now. And I've listed at least 27.
27.
That are not only wrong, but very detrimental, okay?
Detrimental, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and the media keeps saying about this gas price, $1.49 around the corner. Well, you know what the reason is? Because he cut the pipeline the first day he was in office, and we haven't heard one word from the media about how bad this guy is. Your friend from Kingston there used to come on with you and talk about
Trump.
Trump.
Yeah.
And, you know, Trump made Canada pay up because we were well behind in our responsibility with NATO.
Right.
He did many things to that nature, and he was hated for it. Sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
But, you know, the thing about the gas is he cut the pipeline, he let Russia, and the troops, okay? The troops, how many troops do we have in Germany? Over, 25,000? How many troops do we have in Japan? Another 20,000 more.
Well, I don't think Canada has 25,000 troops in Germany.
Yeah.
Really?
No, the United States.
Well, you keep saying we. I'm not American, Dave.
Well, I'm talking about the free world.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
All
but
right,
he wouldn't keep 2,500 in Afghanistan.
Well, I mean, Afghanistan, what's happening there is a disgrace.
You know, what's the real reason that this gas price is what it is? And why aren't we talking about that? You know,
it's a great question. Why is it the way it is in this country?
Yeah.
We have the world's third largest oil reserve.
And this electricity thing, that's going to be, you know, there's going to be a day when you're going to have to decide, do I plug my car in or do I turn my air conditioning on?
Right, okay.
Because right now, the price of electricity, let's say 3 cents a kilowatt, whatever, it's going to be $3 someday, and we're not going to be able to afford that either.
No, I don't know. So all right,
it's just mind-boggling.
You're not a happy camper today, but
I'm not a happy camper.
You want the media to be tougher on Biden.
I want the media to be when you're standing in front of a man that's telling lies.
Okay,
you got to call him out.
All right, Dave. Gotcha. Okay. He was confusing me with the we. And I am easily confused. Lois in Orleans. Good morning, Lois. Lois. Hello, Lois. No, taking too long there. Robert in Ottawa. You're on City News. Good morning. Morning, Robert.
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm just calling about Doug Ford's statement that he made the other day. Personally, as an immigrant, I find nothing wrong with what he said. In fact, it's right in the statement. You come here like every other new Canadian.
Right.
So to me, that's basically he's saying the majority.
Yeah.
You know, and unfortunately, bad apples get in. That's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
So,
but why do you have to say something like that, though? Is it just to be provocative?
Yeah,
because it's going to provoke people.
Yeah, unfortunately, people get offended
it's offensive. I find what he said offensive. You don't find what he said offensive. I find it offensive what he said. I think it's just needless provocation, especially in the atmosphere that we're in, where everything is amplified. The toxicity of every comment is amplified through social media, sir. There's no reason for a political leader to use that kind of language.
Well, the problem is the atmosphere. I agree with you on that. You know, it was probably needless to say, but what he said, I find no problem with it.
Okay. Yeah. Do we? Is this a widespread problem that we have? Immigrants collecting the dole?
I can't say.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Rick in Canada. Rick.
Yeah, Rob, good morning. Regarding the library.
Okay.
Okay. The city freely admitted, I can't remember which councillor, but there was a couple of them actually last week, that the estimates they sent up for approval were 3 years out of date, somewhere between 3 and 3.5 years out of date. The costing was from 2016. And they asked for approval back in 2019, and they said this was one of the reasons for the cost overruns.
Right.
Now, if I sent my boss cost estimates that were 3 to 3.5 years out of date on a procurement project, they would be asking me to consider looking for a different line of work. It seems like everything this city touches when it comes to procurement, you definitely want to keep the mayor and you definitely want to keep the majority of the city councillors away from it.
Okay.
And let qualified professionals do the procurement for the city, because the taxpayer cannot afford to have the mayor and the city councillors involved in procurement. Which brings me to LRT. And when we talked about LRT on your show before, one of the concerns, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you also were concerned about this too, was that the city was in a position of being sued by contractors that bidded on the requirement, because the city suddenly did a kind of a bait and switch when they went from lowest cost compliant bidder to, oh, well, we'll just throw that all out and go with the lowest cost bidder.
Yeah.
And then they went and
That's right. Yeah, very good point. Very good point, because, after the technical evaluation, you could say it's not a compliant bid, right? Because it didn't meet the technical requirement of what we were looking for, right?
Precisely.
Yes.
And then to make matters worse, they did it a second time round for the phase 2.
Yeah.
And then they used the same old excuse that, well, it's only going to cost more if we don't approve it now. Well, so is a house or so is a car going to cost more 5 years from now.
See, this is what I want to know, and nobody's really kind of picked up on this, and maybe it's just me, and maybe it's a stupid question, but if the library is costing 65% more than they originally thought, because of what they are blaming on the inflation in costs of construction materials, building materials, right, Rick? That was a $190 million project. Well, what is the inflation in building materials done to a $4.6 billion project?
Well, I agree, and this is
Shouldn't we find out? Shouldn't somebody ask?
Oh, I agree. And how did the library get approved when they were using estimates that were 3 to 3.5 years out of date?
Gotcha. Thank you, Rick. Good point. Got to run. The news is coming up. Rob Snow Show Friday free-for-all. See how we roll? You just never know. That's all part of the mystery of City News.
local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, October 22nd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it's 4 degrees. Here's what's making news this hour. Another easing of restrictions is expected in Ontario to be announced this afternoon. Premier Doug Ford announcing at 2 o'clock, but in effect on Monday. Bars and restaurants will lose yet another weekend at more capacity, but it's expected that will be in place for next. As we get closer to 2 weeks since Thanksgiving, concerns from the top doctor in Ontario may be founded. Case numbers of COVID-19 are again on the rise. There are 492 cases and 12 more deaths being reported today. 38 of these cases are in Ottawa, 7 in Eastern Ontario, 1 each in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and Renfrew. The positive results are from the over 28,900 tests done, a positive rate 1.4%. OPP looking for help finding a missing 15-year-old girl from Alexandria, Tiffany Cowan, last seen around 3:30 yesterday afternoon at Alexandria Island Park. Her picture and full description is up at ottawa.citynews.ca. Monday morning at 10, flu shot bookings for some will open at Ottawa Public Health. Community vaccine clinics will be held for parents with children aged 6 months to 2 years. We'll have more on this story coming up for you at 11 o'clock. City News Time, 10:33. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Friday Free for All, Part 2, Talk Back Hour. Some COVID-19 relief programs are winding down. New programs are going to be created, like this hardest hit business recovery program, 50% subsidy on wages and rent if you qualify, right? If you qualify. And Dan Kelly says they've set the bar pretty high. But the case was made yesterday by the finance minister that these programs were always meant to be temporary, never supposed to last forever, lasted longer than anyone ever thought they would, but the federal government feels now, obviously, the economy's on a better footing, so it's time to wind down or fine-tune some of these programs. And all in all, I really don't have much of an issue with what the Minister of Finance announced yesterday on the program side. My issue is more about the mechanics of how all of this is being done. Because, honest to goodness, it's like Chrystia Freeland can just snap her fingers and voila! This is how things are going to work from now on. Like, who needs Parliament? I mean, you heard some of the frustration yesterday. We carried part of the news conference yesterday. You heard the frustration from one of our veteran news reporters, member of the press gallery, the great David Aiken from Global News. Okay. Saying to the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister, here you are announcing significant changes to all of these critical COVID-19 programs, basically the pandemic social safety net. You're winding down tens of billions of dollars in spending. You're replacing it with more than $7 billion in new spending, and you can't even give the press gallery a printout providing any kind of background on $7 billion worth of government spending. Any kind of detail, any kind of fine print about how any of this works. Okay, this is not how David Aiken put it, but this is how I'm putting it. You just stand there at a lectern at a news conference at CHEO and say, this is the way it is. You know, there was a time when $7 billion was a lot of money. There was a time when if a new $7 billion government program was announced, say, in a federal budget, we're going to do a $7 billion program, like that would be the centerpiece of the budget. And people I've been in budget lockups. And if you've been in a budget lockup and you're a news reporter, you get to go. And all the top people are there from the Department of Finance. And you can ask them, you're not allowed to quote them, but you can ask them anything you want about any detail of this government program, and they will know it inside out. Nothing like that yesterday. No technical briefing. Nothing. Mr. Aiken's gripe is a totally legitimate gripe. And you know what? It's been more than a month since Election Day. More than a month. And Mr. Trudeau, Rex Murphy has a column about this in the National Post. Mr. Trudeau stood there in August, it's October now, in August, and started spinning this fanciful tale about how this federal election was the most important federal election of our lifetime, the future of the country on the line. So vital that Canadians have their say. So many urgent things that the government needed to do. And it was so important that Canadians give the government a mandate. And yet, here we are. It's been more than a month since the conclusion of that charade, and nothing. I guess there's finally going to be a cabinet sworn in next week. But it's going to, you know what's going to happen? It's going to take another month or so for Parliament to swing back into action. And then what's going to happen, David? Christmas break. So in reality, this Parliament is basically sidelined and neutered until the new year. That's a real sense of urgency. The federal government can't even bother to offer Canadians a fall economic update with an inflation crisis underway. No plans for a fall economic update. Took 2 years to present the last budget. At least the Ford government is doing its budgeting. Whatever you think of the Ford government, at least it hasn't abandoned the whole idea of, coming up with a budget every year. It's more than you can get from this group of hapless liberals here in Ottawa. I don't have too many gripes about what was announced yesterday, but I have a big gripe with the whole way they're going about it. Why did we just elect 338 people to these privileged positions and send them to Ottawa if it wasn't to debate these very issues? Just like the ones that the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister were talking about yesterday. Get it together. Most of us are back to work. Some of us never stopped working. Reconvene Parliament and do your damn jobs. Ron in Nepean, you're on City News.
Hey, Rob.
Hey.
You were mentioning how you can take an electric car and you can go and charge at places and they don't charge money to charge your car.
Right.
And I called in before about the fuel taxes that we pay as regular drivers of regular vehicles. And so I did a little looking, and the newest numbers I could find was 36.7 cents of every liter goes to public transit, road taxes, and whatever uses. Now, electric cars don't pay that 36.7 cents per liter.
Right.
I think we have to make an adjustment. I don't think anybody should ride for free.
Okay.
My view on that.
So if you use a charging station, there should be a 1/3 surtax.
At least.
At least,
and I
okay.
think people that charge at home,
right.
I think there has to be a charge.
A charge, okay.
36.7 cents. We sell over 1 billion liters of fuel in Ontario every year. It's
Sure.
a lot of money.
Yep. Okay, Ron. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Gotcha. Angelo in Nepean. Go ahead, Angelo.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, I'm good. What?
I just wanted to, I called originally to make a comment on something you said earlier. It was just a sentiment, but I just want to say one thing about the Doug Ford.
Go ahead, Angelo. Yep, your phone dropped out there.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that my grandparents on my father's side came from Indecent. grandparents on my mother's side came from Yugoslavia in the 70s. And my grandmother said she agrees with him. But here's my thing that he was trying to say, or my view on it.
Right.
Okay, so he's trying to say basically...
He's trying to say everybody should work hard, right? Everybody should work hard. Right?
Exactly. He's not pointing out immigrants. He's not pointing out immigrants. He's saying Canadians as a whole, because people my age...
Yeah, Angelo, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I can't deal with your cell phone today. Terrible connection. Terrible connection. Theo, Centertown. Theo.
Hi. Yeah, I wanted to talk about the more focused spending the government's looking at.
Okay.
Yeah.
With the relief programs, the pandemic relief programs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you on a speakerphone, sir?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, you got to pick up the headset or something. You sound like you're on Mars.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
All right. Yeah, I'm patient.
There's that.
Yeah, much better. Yeah. Go
Okay,
ahead.
great.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed since the election is an advertisement for EDC, Export Development of Canada, which has been around for quite some time.
Sure.
I had a look at what the criteria was to apply, and I didn't quite fit for it. But I think that's one of the underrated programs that the government had for quite some time, that if they'd promoted earlier, before the pandemic, things might not have been as difficult as they were for some people.
Okay.
That's what I think.
With Export Development Canada.
Yeah.
So what was Export Development Canada doing?
Yeah. Well, when I applied, it was for starting a frame company, and I didn't have enough information to fill out the application.
Okay.
So I let the application drop, and I didn't get the money. Life moved on.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just let it go.
Oh, I see. Okay. I see what you're saying. This is kind of like seed financing or some money to help you start your own business or something like that. Is that what you're talking about? Okay. Yeah. And you think there should have been more of that? Is that what you're saying, Theo?
Maybe not necessarily more of...
Or maybe better promoted or better executed the way something like that?
Execution than the number of programs as such.
Okay, all right.
With one effective program, you can get a lot done.
Sure.
With an effective program.
Yeah. Okay, Theo, thank you. Yep. Sorry. Sorry, Theo. Got to move along here. Darlene. Good morning, Darlene. You're on City News.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, hi, Darlene.
Hi. This is just my own opinion and my own experience.
Yeah.
But it's a bad one. I have had cancer.
Yes.
And I have not had great experience with my two specialists treating me.
Okay.
So I turned to patient relations at the General Hospital, the Ottawa Hospital, General Campus.
Yeah.
I turned to Cameron Love. I turned to patient relations. And the end of September 29th, I had another scan, and it turns out the cancer has spread in less than a month, and might well be accountable because it's in the salivary glands now. For my voice doesn't matter anymore, comes and goes. But for 3 years, I've had a constant flow of hurtful fluid, and I want this gone. I've even asked for a tooth to be pulled because it comes from that area, you name it, in my mouth. So I turned to patient relations. I tried to deal with my specialist. So I have an appointment on Monday, and I wrote a memo, and I just said, I'm not mentioning any names.
No, please don't.
No, I wouldn't. And I have an appointment, which I didn't know what was going to happen. I'm never told. So I said, please let me know what I can expect of this Monday, October 25th appointment. And, all doctors are aware that I have severe mobility and balance problems. And I said, I hope that arrangements have been made for a wheelchair.
And what kind of response did you get?
Okay, I asked about a wheelchair. I asked what's on the agenda.
Yeah. And what kind of response did you get? Was it satisfactory?
And what door do we enter from?
Yeah.
This was a response that I got. Good morning.
Okay, I don't have time to listen to the whole thing. Yeah.
And so we do not make travel arrangements. The Ottawa Hospital may have wheelchairs on site that you can access.
Right.
And did not answer anything about my agenda.
Okay.
And this is after reaching out. So I'm at the end of my rope. I'm in pain.
Yes.
And so I don't think I'm alone in this.
Right.
And we do not make travel arrangements. Who pays for Cameron Love's salary? Who pays even for the banner in the foyer as you enter about how we value patients' rights and all that? And it's really garbage.
Okay. You feel let down by the healthcare system.
Oh, I'm in pain. I'm on my way out because it's been 3 years.
I know, darling. I know. You've been suffering terribly. I know.
Yeah.
I just wish there was more that I could do other than, raise these issues in a public forum, Darlene. And I thank you for your call, but we have to move along there. It's 10:47 right now, and this is City News.
This hour of the Rob Snow Show is
part of the reason I got back into this is because I am creative, and I also wanted to kind of have a fun flair, 50s vibe. All of the boxes are kind of fun names, the colors are fun, the logo is fun, and it's not just the package that I want to bring joy to people's lives, it's also the feeling that they get when they receive it, to know that there's someone that thinks of them and they're missing them and showing that they care when they can't be there. The smallest of the subscription boxes is the red box, the classical box. So you would get 5 to 7 items from the variety of categories. Those do change quarterly. However, with items that are more popular, we'll bring them back as people ask for them, or you could get them as an add-on option. And then those items will be included in the Jazzy box, the same items from the first, although they'll be in a larger size, more quantity, as well as a couple extra items. And then in the largest box, the Doo-Wop Deluxe, which is our most popular, that is a comprehensive offering of all of the other 2 boxes, plus additional. So for example, if you were to get a certain item in the smallest of the boxes, that item would still be offered in the large, but in a bigger size. So you're getting everything bigger, plus an extra few items. The first thing is I look for Canadian suppliers and manufacturers. That is something I'm very proud of. I make sure that the products are safe, that they fit into the packages that we offer, obviously. They have to be the proper size and weight. I have approximately 300 items that we have so far that we can order that basically help make people's lives easier. There's snacks, there's self-care items, there's entertainment, a little bit of everything. And basically I try it and test it, and if it's duly approved, then I include it in our packages. So some of the categories that we have is we offer treats, which is of course everyone likes treats, no matter how old you are. So we have things like nuts, chocolates, different types of snacks, maybe a handmade piece of jewelry. We also include pieces of jewelry as well, occasionally. We also have our pamper items. So your pamper items would include things like your bath soaks, your specialty lotions, things like that. 2 other categories we offer are leisure. Leisure would include things such as puzzles, adult coloring books, paint by numbers, crosswords, word find, Sudoku, if that's how you say it. And we also have items for self-care and health. So masks, sanitizers, sanitizing wipes. They're all natural, non-drying, made with natural ingredients. So they're very good for everyone, especially in this time that we're dealing with.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone line lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
All right, final few minutes of the week. Talkback hour. Albert in Ottawa, you're on City News. Albert.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, hi, Albert.
Unfortunately, I disagree with what you're saying about Doug Ford.
Why?
I'm in agreement with him 100%.
Sure.
I'm going to tell you a quick story. When my dad came here in 1955, my dad passed away 7 years ago. When my dad came here in
Your dad was a hard-working immigrant, I bet, Albert.
Hang
right?
on.
Yeah.
With this, I'll tell you how he was. And he was too proud to tell me this story.
So why is the premier then perpetrating this old myth that immigrants are lazy and don't want to work and just want to collect the dole when everybody knows that it's not true, Albert? That's the point.
Well,
that's the point. Why is he saying that? He's supposed to be a leader. He's not supposed to be dividing people.
Okay. Unfortunately, the big divider in this country is a guy by the name of Trudeau. But Rob Ford, what he's saying there, and you made me lose a little bit of my concentration. But back in 1955, when my dad passed away 7 years ago, I had a man come up to me. My dad was too proud to tell me this. Okay, I had a man come up to me and he said to me, when your dad came here, there was 5 of us that went to Cobden, Ontario. We worked on a milk farm. He said to me, it was so cold that night that we had to put our bodies together in the barn to keep the heat. Now, I used to listen to Lowell Green years ago when I was driving, and one of the comments he used to say is that he'd talk about the salt of the earth when it was 90 degrees outside and the people paving the roads. It'd be 110 degrees maybe on top of that asphalt or doing the concrete. And there was a work ethic where the people came in and they worked. They were proud to work.
Sure.
And not only that, they to talk about going on.
What do you think the immigrants coming to Canada don't have a work ethic now, Albert?
Absolutely, you're absolutely. I'm not saying that at all.
Well, what does Doug Ford say?
What I'm saying is that there are groups coming in here that there are actually federal people that work with these groups back home from where they're coming in from, and they get them in here and they get them on the social assistance. Now, when you open up a paper like I did yesterday and you see the jobs, when you see a company like Bad Boy put a big half ad in the paper, and the other bottom on
Who are these groups? Who are these groups that are doing this?
What's that?
Who are these groups?
What's that?
Who are the groups? Where are they coming from?
Where are they coming from? I don't want to sound racist. I'm going to keep my mouth shut, but I will tell you something.
Right.
People in Toronto know exactly what's happening with some of these groups that are coming in here, and they get on the dole right away, and they have no ambition to work. And that's what that's what Doug's after. You know, the tone, Rob, the tone of this country is set by the leader, and when you have a leader like Trudeau that is not a hard worker and is proven time and time again that he's growing up with a silver spoon in his mouth. We can't do this to all the incoming people. We need workers here.
Sure.
I agree with that. We need people that are dedicated, Canadians, and to work hard and to be part of our community.
I look around, I see lots of new Canadians. I see Canadians who have families here for generations. I don't see too many lazy people. I'm 50 years old. I've never worked so hard in my life. Ken in Ottawa. Ken, you're on City News.
Hi, Rob. There was only one thing wrong with what you said about Trudeau's press conference. And that was that it should have been said by Erin O'Toole.
Okay.
Where in the hell is the opposition at the federal level in this country?
Good question.
Well, I'll tell you where.
Well, they're self-destructing over mandatory vaccines for MPs right now, I guess.
Correct, but they're also hiding. He's hiding somewhere right now, shivering, surrounded by consultants, trying to figure out some way not to insult somebody or not to go after Trudeau. He had all the ammunition to take him down. Somebody like me could have put up a better fight against Trudeau than the esteemed Erin O'Toole. And the press conference that you just commented on is a prime example. All we got from him is silence. And this is the sort of government that you get when you have no opposition. They're not afraid. Do you think Justin Trudeau is afraid to go out and say what he said at that press conference? Not in the least.
No.
He can't wait to get in front of a camera because he knows nobody federally will stand up as a conservative against it and say what you said. What a disgrace this country's become when a talk show host has to say what a federal conservative member of opposition should be saying. What a disgrace.
All right. Ken, yeah, that's what I say. If it's up to me, God help us all, Ken. Thank you. All right. Helen, I think this will be the last call of the morning, I believe. Helen in Westboro. Helen, you're on City News.
First of all, the people who aren't working hard are the members of Parliament right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
good point, Helen. Good point. Bravo.
Yeah. But one thing, we're becoming a lot like the United States. One of your callers mentioned that before. First of all, when they don't talk about what's in their $7 billion expenses, and you compare what's going on in the U.S. with their $3.5 trillion budget or whatever the heck that nobody has seen yet.
Right.
We're imitating them. And Doug Ford, I think his line about the immigrants, first of all, I don't know anybody who works harder than a lot of immigrants. You get your Uber driver, get your people working in restaurants, all of these people are immigrants, and they've worked hard, and that's the way I've known immigrants all my life. They've all come over here after the Second World War. That's how old I am. And they all worked hard, and they've made something of themselves, and they've passed that on to their children.
Yeah.
Doug Ford doesn't want us to be imitating what they're doing in the United States, where they're letting in all the whatever they're calling them, irregular people or refugees, whatever, and giving them pre-education and including university and free health care and everything, robbing them of their instinct to work hard.
Okay. All right.
And that upsets me, okay?
Gotcha, Helen. Thank you. Thank you. That's it. Pretty hot one this week. Sorry if I yelled at anybody. It happens. This is City News.
Is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News. Now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, October 22nd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, 4 degrees, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Today is the day restaurant and gym owners have been waiting for. Provincial government set to chart a new course on the roadmap to reopening, reportedly starting with the lifting of capacity limits after this weekend. With the latest from Queen's Park, here's City News reporter Kevin Meisner.
We'll get the details at 2 this afternoon from Premier Doug Ford and Chief Medical Officer of Health Dr. Kieran Moore on what they're calling a plan to safely reopen and manage COVID-19 for the long term. As of Monday, restaurants, pubs, coffee shops, and gyms can all go to full capacity for the first time in a year and a half. Toronto Medical Officer of Health Dr. Eileen Davila hopes the lifting of restrictions is linked to a requirement to be fully vaccinated.
You know, when we have places, even if they're indoors, where we know the risk is a little higher, in those places where you can verify that people are actually fully vaccinated, it does reduce the risk.
It is believed Ontario's mask requirement in indoor public places will be kept in place at least until the early portion of next year. At Queen's Park, Kevin Meisner, City News.
City News time, 11:02. There are 492 new cases of COVID-19 in Ontario today, along with 12 more deaths. Now, 38 of the cases, according to the province, are in Ottawa, 7 in Eastern Ontario, and 1 each in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, as well as Renfrew County. The positive results from the over 28,900 tests is 1.4%. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
It was 14 degrees very early this morning. That's our high for the day. For the rest of the day, we'll sit at about 8 degrees, becoming partly cloudy. Gusty wind out of the northwest. It will become light and variable tonight. 1 for the low. For the weekend, quite a bit of cloud. Could see some showers Sunday. Highs near 11 degrees. For today, already reached the high, 14.
And right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it's 4 degrees. If you get fired from your job because you refuse to get vaccinated against COVID-19, the federal government says you may not be allowed to collect EI. The latest on this story with City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney.
In an interview with the CBC, Federal Employment Minister Carla Qualtrough says people may not be eligible for EI if their employer requires all workers to get vaccinated against COVID-19 and a person is fired because they refuse. Qualtrough says that's because they'd be terminated over a condition of employment that has not been met. She does note, however, this would not apply to those who have medical exemptions or other valid reasons to not get the jab. Dan Kelly with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business tells City News he's uncomfortable with this.
But I think there are going to be some long-term negative consequences of treating people with disdain for making this choice. And that's kind of the tone that seems to be politically popular right now.
On average, EI pays up to a maximum of $595 per week for people who lose their jobs through no fault of their own and are actively seeking work. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News time, 11:04. Ottawa Public Health gearing up to vaccinate people against flu.
It's a targeted approach, so starting Monday, appointments will be open for anyone who has a 6-month-old to a 2-year-old and everyone in that same household. Also, anyone facing barriers to getting the shot, such as newcomers to Canada or those without an OHIP card. Community clinics will be held at J.H. Putnam School, the Eva James Community Center, the Ruddy Family YMCA, and Minto Sports Complex. Now, new this year is the targeted approach, which they say is important because they're expecting a COVID-19 vaccine to be available soon for those 5 to 11, along with the booster shot for those eligible. 1 week later, the influenza vaccine will be available for all from their doctor or pharmacy, as well as anyone 2 years of age and older can visit select pharmacies to receive their vaccine. Chris Curry's City News.
And I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Well, I've been looking forward to this interview all week. Connexxus, the Ottawa-based company, describes itself as agile supply chain planning for a changing world. And I think the changing world could use more Kinaxis right about now. Ann Robinson joins me this morning, and Ann is a Chief Strategy Officer with Kinaxis. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Yeah, it's really nice to hear from you. we read and see and hear so many news stories about problems with the global supply chain. How challenging is this environment right now for businesses?
I think all businesses are feeling the crunch. It is absolutely a different world for anybody who is in the supply chain, or really for any businesses. They're recognizing that things that were so commonly available are just not showing up on their doorsteps when they need them, and that in turn is affecting how we, the consumers, can access our things. So this is a pervasive problem, I think, across. There's no industry right now that's not feeling a supply chain issue. And
what are the core components of the supply chain problems right now? What are the key ingredients, the key contributors, if you will?
Well, I think there's a few things, but we were so out of whack in terms of what we were buying, when it was being purchased, and as a result, expected demand patterns are completely unexpected. What happened last year doesn't make sense from a business perspective. What happened the year before is not useful information. So the plans weren't there. Now, at the same time, all of a sudden things are starting to get back to normal in some parts of the world, and we're seeing people are putting in those orders for things. So there's a lack of availability of product, and certainly not. We almost don't know what it is that people are looking for, and because the supply and demand are essentially out of kilter, that's what's driving these issues that people are experiencing, these shortages.
Supply and demand out of kilter. Okay.
Yes.
Is it getting worse, or is it improving?
This is what I would tell you.
Okay.
Right now, the areas of the world that have access to vaccines are putting a lot of pressure on areas of the world that don't have access to vaccines. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of our goods are coming from. So we'll look at Southeast Asia. The majority of clothing manufacturers, sports apparel manufacturers get their product from Vietnam, Indonesia, these parts of the world, and they are being ravaged with COVID right now. So their manufacturing facilities just they're not open. So if you think about when is it going, we need to see the rest of the world have access and to be able to get their facilities up and going again so that they can start sending the product. Now, in areas where they've been able to, we know that there's log jams all over the place. You look at the entire west coast of Canada and the United States, every single port is experiencing this influx of traffic,
yes,
and they just can't get the materials off the ships and onto the trucks fast enough to allow the next boat to come in. So it really is a different world than what we've experienced before.
How much of it is a human resources issue, just the lack of labor?
Yeah, well, there's certainly a lot of people are experiencing a shortage of labor, and that's definitely part of it. I don't know that is the only part of it, though. I was on a discussion yesterday where people were talking about the longshoremen and them needing to kind of bolster their work practices, and can they start adding more staff, and how do you make sure that there's no strikes, which those groups are notorious for. But I think it's more than that. I think there's a human behavior element, too, that started with us when we feared the unavailability of toilet paper, probably this time last year. And now we're seeing grocery stores and the likes also starting to hoard. So they're adding more than they expected to. So that's just putting pressure across the whole system.
So what would you expect? American Thanksgiving is coming up, big shopping days, Black Friday, these sorts of days, Cyber Monday, and then, full on into the holiday shopping season. What should consumers be prepared for over the next few months?
They're going to have to get creative. There will be shortages. If there's something that your child has their heart set on, order it now. Get it now within the next couple of weeks, because there will absolutely be shortages. You know, what do we say? Buy local, buy experiences. You and I both know that the restaurants and spas and everything would love to see those stockings filled with gift certificates and instead of actual presents when you don't have that availability. But there's going to be pervasive shortages. You're also seeing companies, reduce the amount of different options they're making available because that's allowing them to actually get product out the door.
Kinaxis is such an Ottawa success story and works with some of the largest and best-known brands in the world. What is Connexxus doing to help large corporations that with global supply chains navigate these difficult times?
That's a great question, and we're in a very privileged position because a lot of people are realizing they need to think about their supply chain differently. And one of the ways we've done that is enabled our software on many of the world's different supply chains, but getting them up and running a lot faster so that they can start mitigating these challenges, figure out different options, see what availability they might have around the world, and make that available, try and match that supply and demand a bit better. And we're absolutely working with existing customers, but we're seeing a lot of new customers come to our door who are asking for help.
Ann Robinson, thank you so much for your time this morning. It's great to hear from you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye-bye.
My pleasure.
Yep. Chief Strategy Officer at Ottawa Supply Chain Software Experts, Kinaxis. 12 minutes after 11, when we come up, another very busy sports weekend is ahead. We'll break it all down for you, get you ready for it with Steve Warne, veteran Ottawa sports broadcaster, host of the Sens Nation podcast and the Steve Warne Project. It's all coming up, as well as the Queen's Park Week in Review, our panel discussion on everything that's been happening in Ontario politics this week with our MPPs after the 11:30 news here on City News.
Was devastating, and it's devastating to all small business, but not knowing where it was going to go. But then the renovation market, as people stayed home, took off like wildfire. And for us, yes, we're very lucky, very fortunate that we were able to turn things around. I think a lot of it had to do with our internet presence as well, that I was, kept working on over years, and then it kind of took off. So that was very positive. But now, no, people are staying at home. We're renovating different markets, whether it's a kitchen or a backyard or your fireplace. They want to cozy things up. So yes, things are extremely busy right now. Right now it's fireplaces, and I think with the snowbirds, a lot of those clients have existing wood fireplaces, so they're looking at inserts. So they want to convert the wood to gas. They don't want to deal with the wood part of it. But they want it clean and easy and efficient, and that's been a major, major increase in our business. The cottage and chalet market has really increased, absolutely. We see that people, that's their staycation now, is either the backyard or their cottage with their close bubble of family. So there's no question that we've seen a big, big increase in that area as well. I've seen a change in the backyard because now the staycation, from my past, being in the pool business, one of our great clients was in the other day, and he's in the pool business. He's booking for 2022 for in-ground pools, okay? So I think what's happened now is that's brought everybody back home, and I think maybe down the road, maybe 3, 4, 5 years from now, we're still going to see people spending time in their backyards and staying home more. The barbecue area, really, we call it the backyard. So you walk out of your house into a backyard, and it kind of looks like that with the fencing and the sky and things like that. So that is just our fun room. It's just, there's a lot of cool gadgets there that has to do with dealing with charcoal and wood pellet barbecues. To go online, you're going to find, you just Google, romantic fireplaces will come up. The one nice thing about our work is that when the Google reviews and the Google pictures are phenomenal. We're uploading stuff every day. I have at least 1,000 jobs, real jobs that you can take a look at, either on the Google pictures on the drive, or if you go to our website at romanticfireplaces.com and click on our work, it's where we used to load lots of them up, but there's lots of pictures there too. But the great thing about that is they're real. There's testimonials there. about people talking about our team. And our team here is unique to everybody else. It's two small teams, but these fellas work for me. They're our guys. So when they go into your home, they care as much about your house as you do.
Opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
In sports. So much to talk about with veteran Ottawa sports broadcaster, host of the Sens Nation podcast, SensNationHockey.com. Steve Warne is back on the Rob Snow Show. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
So it was the widely anticipated last night return of Brady Tkachuk to the Ottawa Senators lineup. Matt Murray, kind of another subplot there in goal for his first game with the Ottawa Senators this season, but nevertheless a loss on home ice. What did you think of the game?
Well, I thought that they just didn't finish their chances. I thought San Jose came in with a really good game plan. I don't think much of the Sharks roster, to be honest, Rob, but I did think they came in with the right game plan, and that was to get physical, get chippy, borderline dirty in some places. And, I mean, Ottawa's a young team, and their important guys are all really young, so I think the Sharks came out with a mentality of let's knock them around a little bit. But even still, had the Sens finished on some of those chances that they had, it might have been a different result in the hockey game.
Okay. How did Brady Tkachuk look, in your opinion?
I thought it looked good. I mean, I thought the first couple of shifts, he was like a dog off his leash. I don't know if you took a note of the first couple of shifts. Like, his back check was phenomenal. But as the game wore on, you could see maybe just a little, not much, a little fatigue in the skating, which is to be expected. Because nothing will take it out of you like actual game action when you haven't played in the preseason and you've only had limited skating with the club. You can be in gym shape all you want from the off-season training, but when you get into the regular season action, that's a different deal. So he'll get better and better as we move along.
Okay, and Matt Murray, how did he look in your opinion? I thought he was pretty steady back there, actually.
Yeah, he was pretty solid.
Yeah.
And you can certainly never complain about 2 goals allowed. I got to say, though, I watch him and I don't feel like I have the same sense of confidence I get when I've watched the other goalies in earlier games this year. Gustafsson had 1 start, Forsberg had 2, and to me, Murray still seems to have some issues with those glove side shots. And, it's an intangible. I just don't have that sense of calm that you sort of get when you watch the great goalies and how still and confident they look in there. But it's early. It's his first game of the year. And you hope, like Brady Tkachuk, he keeps getting better.
Okay. What are your expectations for the Sens? I mean, it's only 4 games in, they're 500, okay? But they have 2 wins, and how long did it take to get 2 wins last season? Like 11 games or something, right? So,
yeah.
What are your expectations?
Well, I'll have a better answer for you when I find out how long that Shane Pinto is going to be out of the lineup.
Yes.
Last
Good
night
point.
he suffered a pretty bad-looking shoulder injury, and the good news is they don't think it's structural damage. That'd mean surgery. I think because he tried to come back, it's probably not super serious. I'm thinking like grade 1 or 2 shoulder separation, couple of weeks, 4 weeks out of the lineup. It's grade 3. You're looking at over 6 weeks, and at that stage, my answer to your question will change dramatically if you don't have Shane Pinto as your second-line center, because I just don't think you have anybody in the organization right now that can touch what Shane Pinto will deliver all season long. So if Pinto's in the lineup, I think they have a chance to make the playoffs. If he's not in the lineup, I don't think they do.
Holy cow. Wow, he's that important. He's one of the spark plugs, that's for sure. Very exciting. They have a great record with him in the lineup, too. So,
no question.
So tomorrow it's the Rangers. They're 3-1-1 to start after 5 games into the season. But it's a 1 o'clock game. Can I ask you, what do you think of 1 o'clock hockey game? I'm not crazy about 1 o'clock hockey games. What about you, Steve?
I think in normal times they're a lot of fun for families. Kids can come out to the rink.
Yeah.
But these aren't normal times, as we all know. And I think that a lot of fans, well, as we saw from the number last night, second straight game under 9,000 fans at the CTC.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in general, I think under normal circumstances, I don't mind the afternoon games because it does give kids an opportunity to go. But that attendance number is certainly a concern. definitely, I think it's not about Ottawa not caring, not about Ottawa hating hockey or anything. I think it's just more about COVID and people just not being mentally ready to go sit with 10, 15,000 other people inside a building.
Yeah. I was looking at the Atlantic Division where the Senators play. Panthers, Sabres, Red Wings. First, second, third. But it's early. But the Sabres are like the big surprise so far. They've only played 3 games. But my gosh, the Habs, they must be ready to set Montreal on fire. The Habs have played 5 games. They have 0 points. They are 0-5. Terrible start. I mean, if this keeps going, somebody's going to get fired. I mean, it's that easy for me with the Habs. What do you think, Steve?
For sure. And there's been discussion of GM Marc Bergevin. He seems to perennially be on the hot seat. That playoff run changed things around, or so we thought. And it's only taken 5 games before everybody starts finger pointing. And I mean, it is a tough start. I know the 0-4 start was the first time they'd started a year like that in 25 years. Now we're at 0-5, and things don't seem to be improving any. And so, in Montreal, there's more pressure maybe than any other city in the NHL. And so Marc Bergevin is always on the hot seat, it seems. And there's been all kinds of talk that he might be going to the LA Kings at some point. He's in the last year of his contract, rejoin his old buddy Luc Robitaille with the Kings. So we'll see how that all plays out. But in answer to your question about whether heads might roll, that could happen sooner rather than later.
All right, so it's another kind of Ottawa Sports Saturday because we have the Senators at 1 o'clock, and then I believe the Redblacks are playing tomorrow, as I Google, and just to confirm, they're playing Hamilton tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Yes. They're so bad. They're almost unwatchable, Steve. The Redblacks are so bad. Did I mention that I think they're bad? Oh, my gosh. Like, really? How, I guess at this point, with the Redblacks being so bad, how is this football club ever going to get people into the stands when it's like -10 outside or something? Like, good luck with that, Steve. Just brutal. What a disappointing season for the Redblacks, Steve.
Oh, no question. They're 2-8 on the season, and it not only is a bad record, but it was a bad product, like you say. Yeah. So often fans would end up at TD Place to watch a game, and what have we said about the history of the new TD Place? It's a great place to be.
Great atmosphere, yeah.
It's very positive, and the Redblacks got so good so quickly. Well, it just seemed like this year in particular, first of all, we were absent, and everybody always forms habits. They're away from the CFL for a while, and so that took away a bit of the momentum. And now they were brutal before the COVID hit, and now they're brutal again. But on top of everything else, the entertainment product has dropped, I think, to an all-time low. And you've also got the factor of it seemed like every game was a monsoon for the fans to sit through. So they were not only not being treated to entertainment, but they were physically miserable while they had to watch the thing. So it's been a perfect storm, and hopefully this team can right the ship. And step one is finding a guy. I mean, there's lots of offensive line has to be patched up. The quarterback has to be patched up. Yeah. That's what they need to spend the rest of this season doing, figuring out who's going to lead this team moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, this season's a write-off now. It's a write-off. Do something with the O-line and get a quarterback. I know they've signed this guy, Duck, what's his name? We'll see how it goes. I hope it works out with him, because the quarterbacks that they have put on the field this season they have not been very good. You're expecting people in Ottawa to, first of all, go through COVID, survive bad weather, and watch that? No thanks. No way. Plus, now your most exciting player, Devontae Dedmon, I don't even know if he's coming back. Like he was in a walking cast the last time I saw him. Like, he's the star of the show, and now he might be gone. So I don't know. Anyway, I shouldn't get so worked up about it. It's only football, Canadian football. So
yeah, I think the step one is offensive line, because I don't care whoever you think is the best quarterback in all the CFL.
Yeah.
If you stick him, with all respect, if you stick him behind that Ottawa offensive line this year, he is not going to be able to create and process the way he wants to. So that's step one. Get that thing fixed up. And to Marcel Desjardins, I mean, he had a couple of guys bail late in the game, retiring. And so that made things difficult, but they've got to get that fixed, and then you can really truly audition who the next quarterback of the Redblacks will be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the Alouettes had like 11 sacks. I think it was 11 sacks.
Yeah.
In one game. It's just ridiculous. All right, let's move along here. It's week 7 of the National Football League. But you know what? I'm not really excited about any of these games. My Broncos, who got off to a 3-0 start, are now 3-4. They've lost 4 in a row. They lost 2. They were the Thursday night game. They lost 17-14.
To the Cleveland backups, by the way.
To the Cleveland Browns, yes.
No, the backups. So their quarterback was out. Their top two running backs were out, yes. And yet the replacements came in and looked great.
Thanks for that, Steve. Analysis. It's the Packers and the Washington Football Club. I know who you're cheering for. That's a 1 o'clock. But what? I don't know. None of these games really scream, I've got to sit down and watch that. What about you, Steve?
Yeah, most weeks I've got something for you where I say, okay, you got to check this one out. 2 teams with great records, but there really isn't that this year. In this week, I should say, Kansas City at Tennessee might be the one that I'd glom on to, just because Kansas City's always so entertaining. Their D is garbage, but it's going to be fun to watch Kansas City operate on offense, and then Derrick Henry in the Tennessee backfield against that Kansas City defense. So I would take the over in that particular game. But you're right. You look up and down. There's a lot of teams on bye weeks for the first time this season. So it's a smaller schedule, and there really aren't any matchups where I go, wow, you got to check that one out. I'd say always check out my Packers, but that KC-Tennessee game would be the one I'd probably circle.
And always check out SensNationHockey.com.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. We'll talk to you next week, Steve. Thanks. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye. Steve Warne from the Sens Nation podcast. Queen's Park Week in Review. Next on City News.
Now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
is Friday, the 22nd of October. Good morning. I'm Jason White. Right now in Ottawa, mostly cloudy, 4 degrees. It's 5 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news this hour. We're getting closer to the day bar and restaurant owners have been waiting for. The lifting of capacity limits will reportedly be announced by the Premier this afternoon, but it won't take effect until Monday. The Kemptville Hospital emergency room remains closed after what the hospital calls a cybersecurity incident. Tech experts have been called in to contain the attack as well as to evaluate the full scope of the situation. No word yet when Kemptville's ER will reopen. The OPP cybercrime unit has been notified. Police are trying to track down a man who ran naked through a park in Limoges. The man's believed to be in his 60s. He was only wearing a black toque, a blue surgical mask, and had a gray sweater, but it was wrapped around his waist. OPP think he's about 6 feet tall, about 180 pounds. He might have also been wearing glasses. Public flu shot clinics will start taking appointments in Ottawa Monday. Ottawa Public Health will open its online portal at 10 in the morning. Ottawa Public Health community vaccine clinics held first for parents with kids, young kids under 2 years, as well as people with barriers to getting the shot. Flu shots will be open to everyone through family doctors or pharmacies a week after that. City News Time, 11:31. I'm Jason White. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
All right, the gang's all here. Let's get into it. Lots of ground to cover this morning. Queen's Park Week in Review. The Democrat MPP from the riding of Timmins, Gilles Bisson, joins me on City News. Good morning, Gilles.
Good morning.
What are you paying for gas up there?
Okay, hang on to your socks. $1.56.
Man, $1.56. Holy smokes.
There's no way it costs an extra 10 to 15 cents to transport gas to Timmins. If I can buy a case of beer for the same price you can, where you are, something's definitely wrong.
$1.56. Holy smokes. John Fraser, Ottawa South Liberal. John.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing, John?
I'm doing great.
Yeah. What are you paying for gas, John, in Ottawa South?
I lent my car to someone in the family, and there was no gas in the tank when I got back.
Right.
And I used premium, so
Premium?
Yeah, well, it's better for the engine because $1.68
for what's regular.
$1.68
for premium. There.
Oh
yeah,
my
so
gosh,
it would
have been about $1.57 for somewhere $1.48. I think was regular.
Yeah. Holy smokes.
Yeah, I know.
Can you imagine Goldie Ghamari? Welcome back, Goldie. It's nice to hear from you, Goldie, progressive conservative from Carleton, that both of your colleagues on the panel today would love to have a carbon tax. They love carbon taxes.
Trying to increase the price of our gas, you guys. You got to stop.
Goldie, have you gotten any screaming deals in the riding of Carleton on a tank of gas lately, or what?
No, I'm actually not in Carleton right now. I'm still at Queen's Park.
Okay, what is
I can tell you about one of the best gas stations. It's the best known secret. It's right at the intersection of Bank and Rideau Road.
Bank and Rideau Road.
Gas.
Okay.
Yeah, Bank and Rideau, so just south of Finley Creek in the Gloucester area.
Oh, way down
and
there, okay.
the price there is usually about anywhere from 5 to 10 cents lower than other places. So
yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I have kind of struck gold 3 times in the last week. I've been up early and into work early, and on Industrial Avenue near the train yards is a Pioneer gas station there.
Yep.
And in my last 3, all 3 of my last 3 fill-ups were there at $1.31, $1.32, and $1.37. But it was like dark and early. It was like 4:45 in the morning. But I'll tell you what, every pump, there was a car at every pump at 4:45 in the morning.
You guys are making me jealous. I'm paying $1.56. Please.
$1.56.
So before I drove down to Toronto last week, I did fill up at that gas station, and it was roughly $1.35 or 36 or something.
Right.
So.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing, Goldie. That's a deal now. $1.35.
It is, unfortunately, but
yeah. Okay, so the next phase of reopening Ontario, we expect a news conference at 2:00 this afternoon where there will be new information shared by the Premier and health officials about such things as capacity limits, proof of vaccination, maybe even a timeline for masking. Gilles, in your opinion, what should be included in the information today?
Well, there's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to be included. I think nobody's opposed to the idea of safely finding ways to reopen. People are, pretty long in the tooth when it comes to how long we've had to endure, this whole lockdown situation. That was necessary. Nobody argues that we shouldn't have done it. Oh, some people would argue that, but the reality is it was the right thing to do. So, there's a lot of things that have to happen as you start to open up and increase capacity in places like restaurants and gyms and stuff. And I think a lot of it has to be common sense in the sense that, if a restaurant doesn't lend itself in its layout to, providing a safe environment, then maybe there has to be some adjustment to that. But, by and large, I think we all support. We need to make sure our schools are safe, that our workers are safe when it comes to making sure that they're vaccinated within the workplaces. There's a whole bunch of things that have to happen, and we'll see what the Premier says.
John Fraser, what do you want to hear this afternoon? What is like you must do the must-haves, John, the must-haves.
Well, if first of all, listen to the science. Listen to the science table. Listen to the Chief Medical Officer of Health.
Yeah.
That's their advice that's most important. If you did something today, it would be to take some action on ensuring that everybody who works on the front lines in healthcare and education has been vaccinated. The government defeated a bill to do that this week, a bill that I put forward. I don't think that's going to happen today. I think what they're going to do is they're going to talk about increasing capacities in restaurants and gyms, other locations.
Okay.
And it'll be interesting to see how that moves forward. I think a lot of restaurateurs were scratching their head why you can open a 15,000-seat arena, but they couldn't expand their capacity. It was hard to understand the reasoning behind that. And so, again, listen to the science. I will be listening very closely to masking. I think that masking is, there's vaccinations, there's masking, there's social distancing, and hand washing, and those are the things that keep the disease from spreading.
Yeah, I don't get the sense anybody's in any great hurry to give up the mask. I think we'd all love to give up the mask, but I don't hear a lot of talk about.
Yeah. Well, it's also the requirement. In certain places, when you're indoors, it's getting cold. We're going to be indoors. We got to be. It's just being cautious. Like we know when we've rushed into things in this pandemic, we've ended up going backwards. And I don't think anybody we can't do that again because it really just erodes public trust, and it's not good for our economy.
All right, Goldie, spill the beans. What's the Premier going to say today?
Oh gosh, if I knew, I would say. But
right.
I'm excited to listen to the announcement myself. What I can say is that I think it's going to be good news for a lot of the businesses, especially those with mandatory vaccination policies in place. I can tell you that they will be told what to expect in the near future later today by the Premier and by the Chief Medical Officer of Health. And the most important lesson I think here is that we've watched and learned from other provinces in Canada who moved too quickly to open up and didn't have a plan in place to reapply measures if public health and health indicators started to deteriorate. When we initially made our phased approach to reopening, it was mostly with the Alpha variant in mind. But one thing that we as a government have been very successful on is our ability to be flexible and our ability to adapt. And so with the Delta variant that's taken over.
Sorry, Gilles. What'd you say there?
I said that it's one way to explain flexibility, yes.
Oh, flexibility. Okay. All right. Sorry.
Sure. Yeah, I guess if that's what you want to say. The plan we have in place right now is to deal with the Delta variant, which is obviously much more contagious and serious. So, it's been a measured approach. It's been a cautious approach. And, at the end of the day, no one wants to go back to the way things were. And I think today is going to be a good news announcement for a lot of people and a lot of businesses. And, while at the same time, we as a government are, keeping health measures in line to keep people safe.
I'm sorry, did somebody want in there?
Yeah,
go ahead.
I just want to say,
John. Yeah, go ahead.
Adopting a cautious approach, and you just made vaccinations mandatory for workers in long-term care, but you won't do that in hospitals, or home care or schools.
Well, most of the hospitals did it themselves.
Not like locally they did. And the government's actually saying
it should be a provincial directive, though.
It should be a provincial directive, but the government's saying
Quebec had but Quebec had it. We talked a lot about this last week. Quebec had a provincial directive, and then it had to basically say, well, actually, we can't do that, or our healthcare system will fall apart.
Well, they set a standard. What they did is they delayed it. And if you take a look at Ottawa, take a look at CHEO.
Yeah,
99% of full-time staff.
Right.
98%.
So why do you need a mandate if it's going to be that?
There are other hospitals in Ontario that aren't. But it's also home care. Not every home care agency has mandatory vaccination. So the reason that you do that is so you have a consistent policy that backs everybody up, and then you can actually do the work you need to do because it does work. Look at CHEO.
Yeah,
it does work.
John,
it does work.
Go ahead, Goldie. Go ahead, Goldie.
Yeah, I mean, John, you're right. I think it's important to have a consistent policy, which is why I'm a little bit confused because, Michael Gravel, who's a member of your own caucus, was advocating for a medical exemption for a PSW in his riding. So, maybe you should figure out what the Liberal policy is first before you try attacking the government. But, John, you know full well that as of November 15, it's going to be mandatory for all in-home staff, support workers, students, and volunteers to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 unless they have a valid medical exemption.
No, it's not, Goldie. And I'll just say one thing about Michael. You know that Michael said he was wrong. He was against the policy. And he did that immediately after that he discovered that he found that letter. And our policy has been very clear. And it's not about Michael, and it's not about you, and it's not about me. It's about what we need to do to keep people safe.
So the only thing I just want to add on to this is that, Goldie makes the point that the government's been flexible and has been learning and been adjusting, and that is true, but it's been done it's like almost you've had to push them to get to where they had to go, because John made the point earlier, when we were in the alpha phase of the variant and then into the delta, the government, was very inconsistent about how they were dealing with things. And it got away on us. And I think the government, it scared the heck out of the premier, and I think it scared the heck out of the government. I think it scared everybody. So the government finally started doing some of the things that it had to do reluctantly, like the vaccine mandates. Nobody likes this, but the reality is it works. And if we look at the numbers today, our vaccine rates are up.
Yep.
Now, 88% of Ontarians have at least one vaccine. Over 80% are both vaccinated.
Yep.
We're going in the right direction.
You sound like Christine Elliott.
Well, those things have to be done. But listen, I'm not going to.
No.
You can't be in this business and just continue, pointing fingers. There's some things that the government has done. Done right. My point is they've had to been brought there kicking and screaming at times, but finally, yes, they did do them, and that's a good thing.
Okay, look, we're going to stop a little bit early here. When we come back, we will talk about some controversial remarks by the Premier this week, as well as proposed legislation on better recognition, easier recognition of foreign credentials. When we return, this is City News.
It's such a beautiful feel because it's all natural. I'm able to talk to a lot of people who are going through different journeys of health where they really don't know where to start, where to begin. And I'm happy and grateful to have all this knowledge where I can actually help them and guide them. So, of course, medications have a great place in our system, but even so do natural therapies, which have been around for centuries and centuries. Like, old time, ancient times, everything, herbs grew, everything was done with nature, all healing was done with nature. So I'm totally in love with all the elements with nature. In our beautiful village of Manotick, the Manotick Natural Market, you can find tremendous different things. So we have herbs, we have vitamins, we have natural body care, we do infrared sauna therapy, nutrition counseling, acupuncture, Bowen therapy, energy healing. So we're like a wellness hub along with being a full health food store. We are 1 year into pandemic since it started last year in March. It was a shock. Usually I see things coming, and I definitely did not see that coming. Golden Root is a product that I created 4 years ago, actually for my kids, just for immune system, overall health. And it just took off with certain friends of mine who had cancer or some severe issues, and they started finding that it was really helping them. from different tests they had done with their doctor, and I knew I had something really special. So then I went through the proper procedure of being able to sell it. So it's actually, I'm not allowed to make it anymore in my house 4 years ago, and it is made in a Health Canada approved lab, and then it comes to me. And what Golden Root is a formulation of turmeric, ginger, lavender, oregano, and black pepper, all food grade, which is the most bioavailable turmeric in the market right now for pain, inflammation, digestion, immune system, concussion, liver health, and brain health. So, and it tastes like salad dressing. We do a lot of in-house, so we make our in-house concoctions of teas. You can come here, tell us what your health issues are, and we can blend it right there. And there's some that are already prepared beforehand for sleeping, for anxiety, for different things. And in that bar, we basically make cold brew teas and cold brew nitrogen coffee. And again, it's all local. Everything we do is local, and as many herbs we can find locally as well. If a client can't come out, we'll go out our way to deliver it. And you're getting that personal touch when you come in. If you have an issue, we will listen and help you. We're very, very active in the community, so we would like the same thing back for the community to come to.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Okay, so we're going to play some highlights, I guess we could call them, from this week in Ontario politics. It's time for Queen's Park Week in Review Part 2 with New Democrat MPP Gilles Bisson, John Fraser of the Liberals, Ottawa South, and Goldie Ghamari. The riding is Carleton. She is with the Progressive Conservatives. This was Premier Ford earlier this week. Roll tape. Go ahead, please.
We need people. And so, folks, if you have some hardworking people, I just have one criteria. You come here like every other new Canadian has come here, you work your tail off. If you think you're coming to collect the dole and sit around, not going to happen. Go somewhere else.
Okay. You're going to come here, collect the dole. Not going to happen. Go somewhere else. The next day, and we aired this live on City News, we were listening to the question period in the legislature. There was a question from the New Democrats asking for an apology from the Premier, and this is how that played out in the legislature. Go ahead.
So my question is simple, Mr. Speaker. Will the Premier apologize for his reckless comments?
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Speaker. Let me just inform the opposition. You know, I am pro-immigration. I have been pro-immigration from day one. Mr. Speaker, all you have to do is come to a Ford Fest. You'll see the support from people around the world that come there. And guess what, Mr. Speaker? I'll tell you how Ford Nation was created. They came to this country. They couldn't get a hold of any NDP Liberal leaders, but they got a hold of the Mayor of Toronto. They got a hold of the Premier. We show up to their door. We return their call.
Okay, so no apology. Invitation to Ford Fest, maybe. But Goldie, help us understand what the Premier's trying to say when he says something like that,
Rob,
Goldie.
Well, Rob, I mean, it's really interesting because when I first saw the articles about it, I actually did a double take because for a moment there, I thought that they were talking about my dad. Because my dad is an immigrant, my mom is an immigrant, I'm an immigrant. My dad came here because he wanted to have, better opportunities. He wanted to build a life for himself. He's an electrician. He's a tradesperson. Worked hard every day, and growing up, he would tell me and my sister, we're immigrants. We're very lucky. We're very blessed to be here. There are a lot of opportunities, but we have to work hard, and we can't take it for granted. So, I mean, my dad told me all the time, like, you have to work hard and you have to be, productive member of society, and you have to contribute. So, I mean, it's
right.
Unfortunate because I feel like I feel like the NDP and Liberals.
You think they're blowing it out of proportion, or
100%? Like this is just dirty politics.
Dirty politics.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me say a couple of things.
Go ahead.
All immigrants we are all immigrants. There's nobody on this show who's not an immigrant. My parents came, my lineage came here in the 1600s. Some of them came here in the last 10 or 20 years. We all immigrated, and when immigrants come to Canada, be it back then or be it today, they all work hard. Nobody's suggesting that immigrants don't work hard and they should get a free ride, because that's not what it's all about. People understand immigrants work hard, and you just have to look at what happens in all our communities with newcomers to Canada. That's the reality. The unfortunate part of what Mr. Ford was doing, he was doing it for political reasons, because he's trying to create this story, that he's tough on those people that are on the dole. Well, people who come to Canada don't come here to get on the dole. They get here to get work. They're hardworking, and it's a comment that he didn't need to make. He knew exactly what he was doing, and it's a way of being able to do some of what we see in the United States with people like Mr. Trump. It's the same kind of thing.
Absolutely ridiculous, and that is uncalled for. No, Gilles, that is completely uncalled for.
So.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead, John, and then Goldie, you can respond after John, okay?
It wasn't a mistake. This is something that's deeply ingrained in the Premier's values. That's why he hasn't apologized.
What do you mean deeply ingrained in the Premier's values? What do you mean by that?
It's just there's these people who are lazy on the dole, and they're trying to take something from us. It's just in his values. It's not something that he hasn't said before. Look, if he was on Hockey Night of Canada and said that, he wouldn't be working today. So the thing that he said was beneath the office of the Premier. And Goldie's right. You know, I live in a riding where almost everybody has come from somewhere else. And, you know, I don't tell you how many times I've hopped in a cab going to the airport, and I'm talking to the driver, and he's talking to me about his family and his kids who are getting a degree in science, a degree in engineering.
Right.
They're becoming a doctor.
Yeah.
And they were trained in something else. And they're actually here working, not doing the thing they were trained to do, the thing that they probably love to do.
Yeah.
So their kids will do better.
The government's going to try and fix that, John. The government's going to try and fix that, John. The government's going to try and fix that.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to, and we need to.
Here's the thing, this is just, Rob, this is an example.
But Goldie, what John said is that this is deeply ingrained in the Premier, that the Premier is the Premier a racist? Is the Premier anti-immigrant?
I don't believe that person.
You know what? That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're going around in circles. They're trying to insinuate things. You know, instead, what they should be doing, what you guys should actually be doing, is working with our government to support new immigrants and to support new Canadians.
We've been doing that for years, long before you came
John,
around, Goldie.
What did you do?
Yeah.
What did you do when you were in government for 15 years for immigrants? You did absolutely nothing.
Well,
and that's why we have a skilled trade shortage of almost 300,000 jobs.
Here's the problem.
What we are doing.
Okay, one at a time. Dave,
let me know.
Okay, hold on. No. Dave, put everybody on hold. Look, nobody can understand anything anybody is saying. You're all talking over one another. So we're going to go off that topic. Let's get back into this, what the labor minister, okay, let's put everybody on the air again. What the labor minister proposes to do with removing some barriers, John, so that engineer is not driving you to the airport in a taxi. Okay?
Yeah.
Don't you think that's a good idea? Don't you think it's time that, long past due, that a government did something to improve that situation, John? Are you not going to give the government credit for what it's doing here, John?
I will. Actually, it's welcome news, and I'd be really interested in seeing the legislation, because they've talked about it twice, and the legislation hasn't appeared. But here's what I'll say is, in 2007, the Fairness to Access to Regulated Professions Act was passed with unanimous consent by every party in the legislature, and that established a fairness commissioner who addresses this. In 2013, trades were included in that legislation. So there's more work that has been done. Governments have been working at this for decades. And so,
we haven't made very much progress, and not a lot of progress, John. Not a lot of progress. I mean, let's be honest.
There has been a lot of progress, but there's more progress that's needed. There are some trades and professions that are particularly challenging to achieve what we need to achieve there, to recognize people's foreign credentials. Right, so what I'm really interested in, this is why I want to see the legislation, is what are the tools you're going to use beyond the tools that we have right now, the Fairness Commissioner legislation? What are the next tools you're going to use? So that's why you see the legislation.
Well, Gilles, I mean, you're an old union guy and you're from the trades in the union as well. I mean, is it something inherent to the building trades that it's hard to penetrate those if you're a new Canadian or what?
No, it's not just building trades. It goes across all various professions. And I think with the government, if they're serious and they're going to do this right, it's a good thing. We've all been working, trying to get this done for some time. Governments have made some progress. There's still ways to go, but we need to see the legislation to see what's actually been done, number one. And John's right. This is not the first time the government under Ford has talked of doing this. Let's hope that this time they're right. Let's see what the details are, because sometimes, the qualification you have where you come from could be different. I'm an electrician, so I worked with people from around the world who were in the mining industry who worked in electrical, and not all the knowledge was the same because their apprenticeships and their trade schooling part was somewhat different. And so you probably need a little bit of adjustment in a few areas, but it's a step in the right direction.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for this week. We're all out of time. I know it goes by so fast, Goldie. I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Well, can I just say one thing really
20
quickly?
seconds. 20 seconds.
Sure.
20 seconds.
Premier has been very clear that we need people to come to Ontario. That's why we're advocating for the federal government to increase the amount of immigration to Ontario. And with this legislation that we're going to be passing, we will become the first province in Canada to help level the playing field in regulated professions.
All right.
So we are out there supporting newcomers when the other parties do absolutely nothing.
No kumbaya, no kumbayas this week. That's it for the Rob Snow Show. Back on Monday on City News.
The Rob Snow Show.
Weekdays 9 to noon on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV.